Rafi's favorite. Rafi's favorite. Ooh, haircut. Look at this. Haircut time.
We're progressing in stages
Ooh.
with the haircut.
Ooh, Mr. Keepa.
And getting used to Mr. Keepa because Rafi just had an upturnish. So his mother is very attached to his hair.
No. No. Yes. I agree. I am in full agreement. Whatever you say, I agree with. You know, it's like people who mindlessly follow a politician and they just whatever he says, like yes, yes. That's me and Rafi.
Oh.
You just have to be careful. The problem is that then what happens is it's difficult, you know, when if God forbid he does something wrong, it's difficult to discipline him because you get caught up
Yeah,
in
it
like
happens
you get
all the
caught up
day.
in
Like,
you get caught up in the cuteness, you know?
yeah, like that happened today.
Uh-huh.
Several times. One of which
Yeah.
is that he can no longer have cups
Oh no. Why?
because he threw it in my face.
Oh no.
Now no more cups. That's it. Cups are over
What was his
until he can prove that he's progressed.
what was his justification for throwing such an object?
I didn't let him crawl into the cat enclosure outside.
Well, you can tell him, Rafi, you're not a cat. You're a person.
Correct.
You know the cats
It
think
doesn't
that we
work.
are cats? You know this whole thing. The cats think that we're cats. They're weird looking cats.
I don't
It's like
know.
I don't know if it's true. I don't agree.
I don't think it's true. I just
Yeah.
think that they don't, if they're going to live with us,
Yeah.
and they have to catify us. They know we're not cats.
Yeah.
They have to anthropocatize us.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. It's kind of like we anthropomorphize.
Cathropomorphize us.
Oh my God. Hopefully not catheterize us.
No. They have to cathropomorphize us.
Cathro. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Filiopomorphize us.
Yes.
Right?
Filio. Yeah. Speaking of which, man, like I was giving that rogue yesterday about the you know, like everything that our sitter is
I
reading.
didn't watch it.
I'm not saying you should watch it, and if I honestly, Frank, I don't care if you watch it. How's that? No, but I was giving
Fine.
I was doing I was recording it, and my cat, he happened to be outside, and then he comes to the backyard, and he just like lays down, and he just listens to my lecture for like the entire time. He
Yeah.
seemed to be enjoying himself. He was very attentive
Yeah.
to what I
Yeah.
was saying, and I don't know. I think he was absorbing something. In general, I think animals are obviously, like I think that they are demoted people who were had their soul placed in this, container, I guess you could say, and
Greg, this is the kind of stuff you say not to me. This is the kind of stuff you say to some young
lady.
girl on a date. Okay, say this
Oh,
to a
I've
young
oh I
girl
oh
on
I've said that they don't appreciate it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what
a.
it is. What, you don't think, dude? You have
I
seven,
do,
six
th- I
cats.
do, I do think that, and I have
Okay.
told you that that's my opinion.
Yes.
But it does sound like something you would say to a girl on a date. You know,
I don't know. Would I?
not you, but something
Oh
that
man, a guy.
would
Yeah.
be said, that should be said.
Well, anyway, my
Or
statement was not to be cute. My statement was actually a statement of the
a
whole
fact. I know.
the
I
whole thing
understand.
of like how souls are able, Hashem decides where they go and all that kind of stuff.
We spoke about this at length, my friend. At
Yes.
length.
Speaking of which, dude, you know what dawned on me today earlier?
I have a lot of ranting that I want to do.
You can
So
rant, but I just want to say one thing.
yeah,
You know how you mentioned this, like, when your brother you know departed from our vicinity, let's put it that way. And you said it feels like he went, like to space on a spaceship, to be like to be stationed somewhere on a spaceship in a like a faraway galaxy. I'm just paraphrasing you. And you know what I thought of? Remember in the movie, I think was it Contact with McConaughey, where
yeah.
he's sitting, he's on that ship, and he's in a place where basically, time moves in a different way. And you see him watching, like his wife and his daughter,
Not
they're eight.
contact.
Was it
Hold on.
Contact?
No, no, it wasn't contact. It was a much newer movie.
Yeah.
And I know what you're talking about. I forgot the name of it, but a problem is he was also in
In
contact.
Interstellar. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right,
that's the problem.
Interstellar,
Interstellar.
right?
So Interstellar, he's sitting there, and he sees his daughter and his wife, they're getting older. His daughter is like becoming an adult and whatever. You see him like crying, and he's staying the same age because wherever he is, the time is like basically almost standing still, relatively speaking. And I know it's interesting because our we know from our books, from our sages, that when the resurrection of the dead happens, our loved ones will resurrect at the age that they uh passed away. So my grandfathers will be, they'll resurrect at 59, and the other one will be 77. And yeah, and then everybody starts, like going back to, I guess, what, age 20, 21. That's a different discussion. But
22.
yeah, 22. And it's interesting because like it's almost like he went, they're all going to this, spaceship with different time, where time freeze stands still. We age, they don't age. And then they come back from that spaceship, and this is what this is.
When I said when I said that spaceship thing in regards to
Yeah,
my brother,
yeah,
I just wanted to I was stressing the point. I was using it as a metaphor, but I was stressing
yeah,
the point that the world of souls is a real place
yeah,
with real living beings. Souls are living beings
yeah,
that inhabited a a vessel called what we call a body.
yeah,
And their life went to a different place. So they're really alive right now, living, not in a conceptual, symbolic way,
yeah.
not in our fucking hearts, but in a real place, independently of our fucking hearts. I'm sorry, I needed to say that, okay? Um,
Yeah.
okay. They're separate beings. We're connected. We're all connected on some level, okay?
Yeah.
On the level that we're all connected is the level where God is one.
Yeah.
Where the deepest level of reality, where there is nothing but God. Fine, that's the deepest level of reality. But God created this
Yeah.
illusion, so to speak, of different things.
Yeah.
And on that level, which is our experience of existence, right? They're alive, living, and doing stuff. Like
Yeah.
we were sent to this world and we do
Yeah.
stuff here.
Yeah.
That world is really a different place, a different world,
Yeah.
and stuff happens there and they do stuff and they have a day, they have experiences. And it doesn't and they don't live inside of our hearts. Okay, I needed to say that very strongly because I don't feel like that's like that like people understand that well enough.
Yeah.
So when I said that it's as if he went to a different world on a
Yeah.
spaceship. Okay, fine, it wasn't a spaceship, it was by some other means.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
I understood.
right.
I understood
I'm
what
not
you
I'm not
meant.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not barking at you. I'm
Yeah.
just barking at the world right now.
It's just that that metaphor made me think of that, that part in that movie, which made me think of T.S. Mason, which then, it put like kind of like a circle together. Dude, you know what's interesting? Regarding what you just said about like they're doing stuff and they're here, or they're
They're
acting
in a different dimension. It's a
dimension.
different world. Yeah.
I was watching. I don't know why. I was like binging because it was it's really hot outside. I'm binging on the show The Crown on Netflix. It's about the royal family in England, and they go from like kind of when Queen Elizabeth was young, when she became queen in like I guess what the 50s, and then they go all the way up to like the sequence of then Diana gets in the picture, Princess Di. And then and they get all these intrigues. I mean, these are the real things that happen. Some of it's they take of course artistic liberties and stuff. One of the artistic liberties they took is when the whole story when Diana when she got into the car accident when she was dating this Dodi Al Fayed guy, this Egyptian magnate. Uh, Basically, what they do is they show the family is getting ready to for the funeral, and you see Charles, he's sitting there, by himself in his room mourning, and all of a sudden he starts talking to Diana, and it's like she's like, I loved you so much. And this like a back and forth, like, I was suffering, and he goes, yeah, I know this and that, I don't know how this could have been different. This whole like discussion about how the things could have turned out differently, why she was led to, be with this, whatever, like be with these guys, and then when she went to Paris and this and that and then the other. And you see this whole discussion, and it's almost like she's there, and he's trying to reconcile things with her, to kind of be at peace. So she's at peace, he's at peace. And then you see the same thing, like that Dodi Al Fayed guy, he's talking to his father, the Arab. His father was the magnate. He owned like department stores in England and all that stuff. And his father was like putting pressure on him to be, this like whatever, like to kind of elevate his game and marry into the family. He forced him to propose to her in Paris, do this whole romantic thing, because his father wanted to be part of the royal family. And then there's this whole discussion. Oh, Dad, I feel like I disappointed you. He's like, no, you didn't. It's this whole like back and forth, like, I'm sorry, it's not your fault. You're a great son. Whatever. This whole thing, and like, it's like the guy is there, alive, talking to his dad, and they're just reconciling all of these things, all of these issues that they had while when he was alive. You know, Same thing with Diana, and it's like real. It's really real, and they show like they're talking to them. Um, I don't know, dude. Like you're this is weird to say for me because you know, I'm not blood related to your brother. And I'm not saying this to be cute, and I'm not even saying this to be like blow smoke up your tuchus. I'm saying it because this is what I feel. I literally feel like he's here. I feel like he's here. I felt like he's here the whole time since he physically left. I feel like he's looking at everything that's going on. He's how should I put this? I don't know if he's necessarily trying to. It's almost like he was instructed, I guess, by Hashem, maybe also by the Rebbe. You know, don't don't intervene, if that makes any sense. You know, let this whole thing play out. Yes, you are the people that were like your colleagues are not. They're not citing you, they're not remembering you, they're not, crediting you. The only people that credit you are like your brother, your family, maybe like some guy, his friend. couple of other people. Okay, when they bring, when you and I bring him up on Twitter, like all these people, oh, Dr. Zelenko was an amazing man. We get like responses, right? But I feel like he was just instructed, just let, you know, let the free will department play itself out, if that makes any sense. Um, it's interesting because yesterday I don't know if you saw this, I posted a bunch of clips, RFK, not that I'm like whatever, relying on him, but he went to Congress and he basically just like called out a couple of these senators, Congress people. He was like, listen, lest I remind you guys, you and I met 5 years ago and you were the champion for people with all kinds of vaccine injuries before COVID. And then he's like, what changed? All of a sudden, you guys got some donations, a couple of donations. And then one of these ladies is like, oh, point of order. She's trying to muzzle him. I feel like it's slow, it's painful, agonizingly slow, like you say. But I feel like there's a process happening. Um, and it's happening. And I think that, you and I joked yesterday. We were watching these guys, the Italo disco DJs who started putting out stuff like 5 years ago, and now finally they're getting noticed. And then you said something like, "Oh, maybe it's our time now, soon."
All right, allow me to respond now a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to play those Italo disco
Oh,
guys
we
because
will.
I'm going to need to blow off a little steam here. But
Oh, we
I just
will.
want to say that let's talk about one of the things that you said just before, um, progress, about it being slow.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something. I've never been angrier at Trump than I have at this time. Even emotion, it doesn't make sense. I should have been angrier at him with the COVID bullshit, right? With Project Warp Speed. I said War Speed. Interesting slip up. But I feel like his Warp Speed reasons had more legitimacy than what he did with this war. Let me explain. This hurts me to say because I've always felt I'm the biggest Trump supporter there is. You know what I mean? Like I have a lot invested in him, in his success and
Yeah.
what he does. And I still support him. I still support him. But in terms of the rate of Mashiach, right? The revelation of Mashiach and biblical prophecy coming to being fulfilled. I feel like he put a stop to it. I feel like it was happening. I feel like good things were happening. The Israelis were annihilating the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the Ayatollahs, and all those guys, and they were doing just fine. They were doing amazing, and miracles were happening. Miracles were happening, and they could have taken out, and they were fully prepared to take out the nuclear stuff on their own. They planned for it, going it alone. And then Trump came in. He did this, and he put a stop to them finishing the job. Why did he do that? I'm not asking you, Greg. I'm venting right now.
I do want to make a comment on what
He
you're saying.
sabotaged Israel's amazing, shocking act because I believe there's two things. This is what it feels like. He cannot stand the idea of anybody but America being the great hero and the great. He can't stand the idea. As much as he likes Jews, as much as he likes Israel, he cannot stand the idea of anybody doing anything that is that he thinks he should be doing. He should be leading the world to this. Everything has to be under his control and his thing. Okay, this was a massive mistake, and this mindset feels like it put the messianic process on hold. That's what it feels like. I'm open to being wrong. In
Frank,
fact, it would be way better if I was wrong, right?
Frank, can I throw my I guess what 2 cents into the ring here? You know, he is the good part of Esav, but he's still Esav. So that's Esav. That's number one.
No, that's not correct. I
But
hear
let,
you've said that many, many, many
let,
times.
let me just
No, you already said something wrong. So now we're
Frank.
gonna go on. We're gonna
I
have to
mean,
come back and address it.
we will address it. I'm just trying to
The
say.
good part of Asav, it works together with assists Yaakov.
I think he did. In a lot of ways there was a good amount from what we know, a good amount of coordination, a lot of coordination actually, even
Hold
before
on.
this bombing.
I didn't before you continue, there's something I wanted to say that I didn't get a chance to say.
Yeah,
Israel was in the process of returning the favor to Cyrus the Great
correct.
to free the Iranian people from the oppressors. Trump literally sabotaged that. Those people are being executed in the streets right now. Those who are looking at Israel as the great liberators, just like the French looked at Americans as the great liberators during World War II. Trump stopped that. He
I'll tell
couldn't
you.
stand the idea.
I'll tell you practically why I think he did that. And I'm only, obviously I have the benefit of hindsight. Um, you probably noticed today he had the this NATO summit. What I think, what I this is what I think. This is just on a practical, kind of geopolitical level. I think that in order for there to be successful regime change in Iran, meaning how do you precipitate? How is regime change going to be precipitated? And by the way, this is what where I will throw in, what I said many times that I think that Khamenei will be knocked off very, very soon. Probably, I don't know if Trump's going to do it, but it's probably going to be like on Gimel Tammuz. That's a different story. But I think that before that happens, and it's not going to be over, like overnight. Khomeini, let's say Khomeini is knocked off, he's killed, right? And then once that happens, the people will have enough courage, even without with I mean, you can't say they have no guns, but they have very, very limited weaponry. The citizens of Iran, very limited. They can get them if they want to, but it's very limited, and it's a whole it's a whole thing to just rise up like that.
Just a second. Israel was prepared and in the mood to whoop
Yep,
ass. And they
correct.
could have made it much, much easier. They were
Yep.
totally prepared to keep bombing these
So
assholes and killing them and picking them off.
you're absolutely right. So what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, on a practical level, Trump wants he cares about so to speak this he cares about the American economy. He cares about the immediate prices of oil. He wants to end the war, um the Russia-Ukraine thing. He wants to like he wants to basically tell NATO and EU this is how things are going to be. In order for that to happen, that can't be done while there's like a very, I don't say mysterious, but like there's like some revolution happening in a Middle Eastern country where basically we don't know what's gonna we don't know what's gonna be the result in terms of the regime change. Because why? Because in Iran, even though they're not Arabs, you have multiple groups in that country. So the question is, and it's a practical question, are they going to stay united as one? Iran with like these Azeris and the Armenians and the Persians and all that stuff. Are some of the groups going to want to break off into either their own country or join up with, let's say Kurds, right? There's Kurds in like three different countries. They want to make their own country with like the Kurds in, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and Syria. You have like four countries encompassing one group of people encompassing four countries. Then you have Armenians, and then you have Azeris, and then like I asked a friend of mine, a Jew from Azerbaijan, from Baku. I go, if they have what is it called, regime change, are the Azeris gonna want to go join Azeris in Iran? They're gonna be part of Azerbaijan, or are they gonna want to be Iran? He's like, listen, probably Iran because of the wealth, because of this and that. Azerbaijan is it's still a kind of Sovietized place. So there's all these things to consider. There really is practical things to consider. If you're gonna,
Azerbaijan is way it's just for a second. Azerbaijan is way better than Iran economically, and they wouldn't want to be part of Iran because
No, not
uh,
Azerbaijan or part of Iran. The Azeris in Iran, do they want to be a part of go to Azerbaijan or be attached to Azerbaijan? Or do
okay, I
Azeris in
misunderstood.
Iran? Yeah, do the
I
Azeris want to keep
misunderstood you.
living in Iran? Because Iran, listen, Iran, if you take away the mullahs, Iran can be an economic powerhouse because of
Right.
the people who live there, the young
Ex-
people, talented people.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
Azerbaijan, by the way, is under the influence, just like any other former Soviet state, of unfortunately Russia, even though they do stuff with Israel and all this stuff. So,
Listen, what you're saying,
yeah,
the pattern that these practical concerns, right?
yeah.
I just want you to say it sounds exactly like everything that they said would happen if Trump did this, if Trump did that, if Israel did this, if Israel did that.
No, I get
You know,
it.
okay. So
Mhm.
you can't you can't put you can't use that mindset to people who went against that mindset.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to tell you, I think that he wants to end this war with Ukraine and Russia. And I think that he wants just Russia to kind of like adhere to what he wants Putin to at least in some measure to adhere to, and then we can have whatever regime change. There will be regime change. There will be.
Listen,
And
this
and
is
and if they have a repeat, if Iran has a repeat of what happened in 2009, unlike Obama, Trump will support those people as much as like Matt Gates will scream, "Oh, I thought you said no regime change. I thought you said
I want
this and that."
I want to tell you something. Unless 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 things happen drastically, right, in Iran, it, it, the Iranian people will be. It feels like their spirit will be destroyed forever
I
because
I agree. I don't disagree with you.
because Trump left them in the clink. I don't know if I use that term correctly.
You did. You did.
He left them high and dry. They're being executed right now on the streets by the remnant of the Iranian Guard. So, which means the people who are most likely to take up arms against and act against the Iranian Guard have been abandoned, showing as an example to every supposed moderate Iranian person what happens if you try to do anything different in Iran. That's what
Well,
Trump did.
well, Frank, I want to play something for you. Um, yes, but I want to play something for you. I don't know if you know,
Hard
like
to say but after that. This is a really foul thing. And first
it's
of
a
all,
foul thing, but I want to play something for you regarding
also
Iran
he
internally in
also
Iran itself.
just a second. Also, he equated Israel and the mullahs,
I know.
right? Like he's some freaking enlightened genius angel, right? And he literally enlightened. He he said they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand? Like like
To be honest with you, I have
Uncle
a weird
Asa is such a prick.
I have a weird feeling that a lot of that is somebody mentioned, like if this is WWE, then BB plays a good heel, the heel.
Look, I'm telling you, I hear what you're saying. I'm just I'm telling you
It
how
would
I
just be it
feel.
would just be nice if the Iranian people were not suffering as a result of this kayfabe.
This
That's
is unnecessary.
I know, I agree.
This is this is Trump. Like he literally felt that these people, whatever, man, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
his economic interests have to come first you know, over what's going to happen to these people. This is the biggest asshole movie he's ever made in his
I
life.
I agree with you.
Uh,
So I just
so I
yeah.
just want hold on a second before you play whatever you're going to play. I want to say whatever I'm saying right now that's negative about Trump. I'd like to be wrong about this. I'd like somebody in the future to say, "See, you remember what you were saying? Oh, you're wrong." See, and I'll say thank you, because it's better because me being right about this is
Yeah.
very bad.
Well, it's kind of
Okay,
like I don't want to. I'm not comparing you to these people, but there was a lot of people that what was it a month ago said that Trump threw Israel under the bus. There was this whole chatter that Trump is throwing Israel under the bus, and I was saying that it's all this whole thing with Qatar that it's all this like game, and we saw in the end that it was a game, this whole shtick that he was playing. It was,
look, there's
and he did not throw Israel
look,
under the bus.
there's some part of him, right, that the idea of Israel growing and becoming what it's supposed to be on the world stage, he has a problem with it.
He
Okay.
has he has a problem with anybody eclipsing him. Anybody,
Right.
not just Israel. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Right. Okay. So I didn't want any American involvement. Okay. Because Israel could handle it on its own. Okay.
Yeah,
It even bothers me that they used American made weapons.
yeah,
Israel should have had their own arms industry a long, long time ago.
yeah.
But it does, as bad as the situation is, right, with the type of government that Israel has, Erev Rav, okay, it fits. It does fit, as Rabbi Weisberg explained in we played him. By the way, I don't think in the last episode, like it was very low. Did you listen to our last episode to hear how it sounds?
It's
Is
yeah,
it is it is it audible?
it's audible. It's very
Okay.
low, but it's audible. Yeah.
So in the last episode, Rabbi Weisberg was saying that it makes sense because the prophecies say that when Mashiach, that right before Mashiach comes, that Israel is going to be run by this entity called the Erev Rav, which is it's a subgroup of the Jewish people, right? But they're a special subgroup who are anti-Torah, okay, and they act as an agent of Edom. They act as
Sure.
an extension of Edom. Edom being Western civilization,
Yeah.
Rome. Okay,
Yeah.
America is the leading aspect of Rome in the modern world. Western civilization. Rome is another word. Rome, Edom, Western civilization. These things are all synonymous. Okay, for those who are joining us for the first time. Okay, and so this entity, these secular anti-Torah kind of Jews, even though some of them show some signs of Torah here and there, kind of like you were saying about Netanyahu with the Siyata Deshmaya.
Yeah.
Fine, I understand that. Like Netanyahu is like the weakest link.
I think Netanyahu's giving the Torah people, I mean the ones that he has in his cabinet, he's giving them he's
Yeah,
giving it's a platform. It's almost like somebody I know whatever, somebody's a teacher in Israel. He said Shaul is giving the house of David you know a stage. He's
yeah.
allowing
Okay,
David to come in.
all right, but so Netanyahu aside, he's still technically part of the Erev Rav, and the Erev Rav is an extension of Edom, and basically they're just the lapdogs
Yeah,
of Edom. So Israel is run by a lapdog of Edom. So it fits. So this infuriating,
yeah,
uh, spirit crushing event that occurred does line up with what the Torah says
correct.
is the world is going to look like.
Yeah.
Uh, that doesn't make me feel the slightest bit better,
So
but
so
but hopefully it's an indication of what we're going to see a massive change soon with Mashiach, because the only way that Israel comes to what happened with Trump equating the Ayatollahs in Israel, all this bullshit that he said, stupid asshole, okay, is when Mashiach comes, all right, and takes over Israel and leads Israel to its potential and what it's supposed to be on the world stage, the leader of the world.
yeah,
Okay, that's what it's supposed to be.
yeah,
A leader that the world will follow willingly.
yeah. Not at the point of a sword, unlike Islam. Well, Frank, I want to play for you. You mentioned the Iranian people and them losing the spirit and the will and all that kind of stuff. Uh, I don't know if you know this, like, there's been talk for a few years already because Khamenei is getting older, and obviously, they've been talking who's going to be his successor. Is it going to be his son? Mujtaba Khamenei is going to be there's the grandson of Khomeini, the original guy, the guy from who started the revolution.
Can't believe they
Is
left him alive. I can't
is it
believe it.
is it gonna be? And there's a few other guys, Larijani. There's a couple of other people, right? So this is a taped, a tapped conversation between Mohsen Rezai. I think he's one of the heads of the, if I'm not mistaken, IRGC. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's a politician, conservative politician with the Resistance Front of Islamic Iran. Oh yeah, he's in the IRGC. It's Expediency Discernment Council. So he is talking on the phone to Mujtaba Khamenei, and they're talking about what they should do. Here, there's the subtitles.
ببین شما یک چمدون خیلی مختصر آماده کن و حاضر باشین من یک جوش مثلا سوالتون نه اصلا نباشد که بیست آقا استراب و حالا این حرفا اصلا خیلی شفته شدم نتیشون شده میشون کی به خودش میرسید اینطوری به این شدت برگزار شده اما
They're talking about the blowing up of Fordo.
همه بیشتر نگران اینن که فتنه این دوباره ایجاد
So he says they're worried about like things are gonna get, you know, crazy on the streets.
نشه این وضعیت اگه بشه خیلی یکم کردنش کار ساده نیست خب من باید برم حالا خانم شما این کار رو بدش کنید گفتن میگن که آقا مشتبه گفتی که اگر خدای نکرده شب بحران میشد خانم بچه ها رو برد به موزه میگن که روسیه میان دنبالش ما این حرفا یه دوست داشتن مردم نیست نگفتم من باید برم شما حاضر بشین من تانست میگیرم خداحافظ
I think they're talking about some other official and how he basically fled the country, and they understand that like if the people should rise up this time around, you know, it's not going to be as easy as previous
Yeah, but
times. And
I'd like to point out, have you seen any footage from Iran since Trump decided that it was enough is enough? No. There's a complete media blackout about what's going on
there's
there right
there's
now.
been one, yeah. Yeah.
Even more than during the bombings. You understand? During the bombings, people were still getting a little video here, a little video here, a snippet here, a snippet here. Now there's nothing. There's zero, if you notice that. The entire country is totally blacked out. Not like Gaza, where that had their internet the whole time. Not at one point during the Gaza war was there a problem to get any footage out of there. In fact, they had an entire footage industry of fake footage, okay, that Israel was facilitating. It's the biggest lockdown in history. In terms of it's like back to World War II. Maybe in like 2 months when we go to see a movie, they're going to show us a black and white reel of some kind of update from the war front.
Yeah.
And Trump is not saying shit. He's not saying shit about, look, Trump was literally his prick ego could not stand the idea of Israel, unfortunately through Netanyahu, being the liberator of Iran.
Yeah.
He has to do it.
Yeah. Here,
That's
this is the streets. I'm just looking for different things, the streets of Iran. Like this, they have basically the I guess it's the besiege on the streets, guys waiting, you know, for things to happen. Faces of real despair. Also, they understand that, you know, it's
like I hope I'm wrong about everything I say. I really, really hope I'm wrong. Can you read any of this? I'm a little.
No, these are just like text.
Listen. I'm not dyslexic, but with my eyes, I have a hard time focusing my eyes in one place and to read text, especially if it's moving around.
So I'm not trying to read the text. I'm trying to look for videos or photos, like posts that have videos or photos from Iran.
I have to peek. I'll be back in a moment.
Yeah, do your thing. I'll just scroll around as you. Folks, by the way, we thought we killed this guy, Kani, this guy right here. Apparently he's still alive. It says besieged checkpoints will remain in place until further notice in order to identify agents, quote unquote. Yeah, they're finding people who are like collaborating with Israel and stuff like that. I think like 700 of them. Yeah, managed to weaken the regime, overthrowing is up to the Iranian people. The Iranians go on into the streets. It's not so simple, you know. Oh, I want to read to you guys, maybe when Frank gets back. This is something from the girl Neo Berg. She's like a Persian. I guess she's a Persian Jew. Yeah, it's the guy. It's Khani, Ismail Khani. Let's see. I'm trying to find something here. Because how can you be against the strikes? How can any Iranian person be against liberation of their own people? Just astounding to me. Yeah. We're going to have a new mayor. IRGC personnel, man, hopeless, restless, scared in the streets. Importantly, soon they will be clueless too. Yeah, basically they don't have any commanders, so they're kind of just yeah, they're arresting people for working with Mossad. My cousin is a teacher, not a spy. They took him last night. No warrant, no explanation. We don't know where he is. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on in Tehran. Let's see what else.
Yeah, they're literally just killing anybody suspected.
Well, they're taking them. Yeah, they're taking them to. Even though we bombed that prison, that Nevin, the political prison, Nevin prison. Well, they'll take them somewhere else. Here, yes, I'm just some of these accounts. Like it's interesting. They get like they get information from different places. Yeah, 700 people abducted. I mean, ongoing. Oh, okay. He's trying to be sarcastic. Trump to meet the Iranians next week. Say a new ultimatum's on the table. Oh, so he's going to give them a new ultimatum. Let's see what that is. So, I know no matter what.
Next week. How many people are going to die until next week?
Well, Frank, let me.
You know what that prick honestly said? He goes, "I'm going to Europe to hang out with my friends. It's going to be more normal and normal."
But do you remember what he said about 2 weeks, and then like 2 days later
he bombed. He should not have gotten involved.
He bombed the crap out of him.
He should not have got involved. Okay, can't stand the idea of anything happening without him leading the way and without his fucking stamp of approval on it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, here's what this girl. There's a girl. She's a Persian Jew. I guess she's a Persian Jew. Neo Berg on X on Twitter.
Yeah, Neo Berg. She's not exactly the brightest bulb.
I know, but here's what she wrote about this whole, everybody telling, which is true, what she said, everybody telling the people to rise up and all this kind of thing. Yeah, I just want to find the post because she posts a lot. It was from yesterday. Here we go. It says, why won't you Iranians simply rise up? So like she's quoting other people. You walk out of your home and besiegers immediately stop you. They demand your phone to see if you are a, quote, collaborator. You see your neighbors thrown into vans down the street. You are unarmed. They're aiming at you. It's a total mystery. Yes, Israel did serious damage. However, it wasn't nearly enough to prevent the regime from controlling the streets with an iron fist. The mood is revolutionary, as it has been for years, but what exactly is an unarmed population with significant trauma from previous uprisings and massacres expected to do here? Have you personally lived in these circumstances? I have. It's not as straightforward as pouring into the streets. If so, the 2009 Green Movement would have been the end of the regime. What happens next in Iran depends on a high enough number of regime defections. After Trump foolishly declared he wants no regime change, even by the Iranians ourselves, defections will crawl to a halt, which is actually not true. He said he wanted the Iranians to do it, not America. This is more complex than just rise up, bro. Sure, you could say Iranians have entered the streets during the war. They actually did on multiple occasions. But bear in mind, doing that while under total internet blackout and bombs falling is an extremely high demand to make. This is why this ceasefire bothers me so. A few more days of Israel hitting the regime as relentlessly as they did yesterday could have made a massive difference, stopping the regime from organizing and controlling the cities. They were disrupted, yes, but this needed an extra push, which never happened. So somebody wrote, I'm greatly disappointed in Israel and America. And she responded, Israel did their best. This was on the U.S., I think, aka on Trump.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
I'm cursing too much, like Rafi's here. Like I can't.
Yeah.
This topic is like making me lose control a little
Listen,
bit.
I'm still of the opinion that I have a weird feeling. It's not so weird that Khamenei will be unalived very soon. I think that's the only way that this whole regime change thing is going to happen. That's the only way the
Listen,
Iranian people will get the guts to do anything.
look. I think that the reason why Trump stopped any real progress from happening for Iranians,
Yeah.
right? He may have slowed down the nuclear thing, right, for a couple of years or however
Yeah.
many years or whatever. Okay, and the ballistic missiles might have slowed them down for a while. Okay, but the real reason why the real leaders of Iran, the people who were in charge, right? Why Trump stopped Israel from doing it is the same reason why there's no real justice happening in America with the highest ups too. Okay?
Yeah.
Because folks, Trump is part of the elite. Okay, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for any serious justice to take place with Fauci or anybody on that level at all, right? And as you see, that's fizzled out. People aren't even asking about it anymore.
Yeah.
Because it'll make them face a scary truth that Trump, who presented himself or allowed himself to be presented as someone who's going to take down the global order or the elite, is actually just part of it. And he may not be, there might be factions within it, or he may be a merciful one of them who went against the general plan and said, he saw how abusive his fellow elitists were and what they were trying to do. Maybe he didn't agree with the direction they were taking, right? But he's not gonna take down his own people, so to speak. Right? The real criminals are not going to be brought to justice because in a certain sense, that's part of his group. He's going to use them. He's going to colonize them. He's going to, turn them around and make them work for him. That's what he likes to do. But the real criminals, like Obamas and the Faucis and the Clintons, they're not being brought to justice. It's not even a discussion. It's not even being discussed anymore. Did you notice that?
Yep, correct.
Okay. Okay. So basically, all our hopes in terms of that, it doesn't seem like there's anything that's going to be happening there. He's basically focused on the same thing that they're doing, except the Trump version.
Yeah.
Okay, using the swamp and converting it to a Trump led swamp.
Yeah.
Okay, where he thinks he can do good by using the same people who have been doing nothing but evil and sabotaging him.
Frank, there are people who ask.
Hold on, I'm still. Well, let me just finish off this idea. Okay, so, he's not interested. Trump is not interested in justice.
Yeah.
Okay, he's interested in improving the economy, and he sees helping the little man by getting better jobs and getting manufacturing back and making America strong and having America be respected again. And that's the path that he's chosen. Okay, he's not interested in justice, and that's a serious problem, because it's nice what he said about God when he came on and gave that short speech after he bombed Iran, after he bombed the nuclear things. Okay. But God demands justice. God told us that he demands real justice, especially against really, really bad people
Yeah.
who hurt many people.
It's
Okay.
yeah.
He's going soft on murderers.
Can I just you're right. And there are people out there, just random people, who would ask, Tzvi, even if what you're saying is true, uh, but don't you want to just like, don't you want not only Trump, but just other politicians not to busy themselves with all of these things and not to, not to, a lot of people say not to, drag the country through this stuff, not to get distract themselves from governing and fixing, like you said, the economy and all this kind of stuff. But here's the thing. In order to part of running a country, part of running an economy, a big part of it is people's morale. You know, and this might be like a lot of people will say, well, isn't that like when you talk about, for example, the stock market, right? A lot of people say, people's morale is or sentiment, it's called market sentiment is bad. And people say, well, isn't that all psychological then? It's not really based on any numbers or all that kind of stuff. Here's the thing, man. Those numbers are based on yes, it's based on people's psychology. How do people feel about, uh, you know, whether or not they're going to be able to get a job or make money, or let's say like people make decisions right now. For example, people are making a decision: am I going to stay in New York because this literally 12 Shiite Muslim is about to come in, or let's say I'm going to move to Miami. Like the question you asked me about Israel, people asking the same questions about if they're going to move to another state, where are they going to work, how they're going to make money. It's a real questions. Anywhere you go, doesn't matter. So this is all, you know, uh, I hate to quote John Maynard Keynes. He was an economist. He talked about, like animal spirits, people's psychological sentiments, mysterious, kind of sentiments that you can't explain. Yeah, people are emotional creatures. Some of it is math. Some of it is, a lot of it is hard math and economics and supply and demand and X, Y, and, et cetera. But a lot of it is sentiment. So if people feel like they if they I don't know, start a business, right, or get into some business, and then they feel like, let's say there's I don't know, somebody has like a grievance against someone else and they go to court and they feel like the court system doesn't work, there's no justice, there's a lawyer somebody can pay off, or there's a judge, depending on where you go to court, there's he can rule you against you or for you. It's not impartial. It's just depending on, find yourself a red county to have a lawsuit in. Find yourself a blue county. This is horse shit, man, And lawyers think about it. Like, I'm sure you deal with lawyers and they think about these things. Yeah, we have to get the right judge. What do you mean the right judge? What do you mean? There's laws. What do you mean the right judge? Oh, the
Not
one that,
anymore.
yeah, exactly. So if you don't take offenders, abusers, criminals, people who did horrible things, if you don't, take them to task, if you don't rectify this, people are not, they're not going to start businesses. Dude, it's like literally people I know, like especially Russian speaking Jews. Oh, they say, what's the point? It's just gonna, business is for the, like my grandmother says, business at the, it's like politic, like politics, politica the grazное дело, business, the same thing. If you're not made for it, yeah, there's a lot of dirty stuff and there's a lot of this and a lot of that. What do you mean a lot of dirty stuff? It's either people want to buy a product or not. There shouldn't be any other things from the outside that ain't got nothing to do with business, nothing from nothing, affecting how my parnasa. There should not be. There should not be a guy doing this, that, and the other. Like in Russian we say levый дела, which he doesn't go to jail for, where he gets a slap on the wrist, and a guy like me gets screwed. Like it shouldn't be this way. That was in the Soviet Union. What they're talking about,
That's in America for the last 100 years.
Yeah, well, my Russian speaking relatives, what they're talking about is people who go into business. They went into the Soviet Union, people who were not honest, people who knew how to, skirt the system. And it was true. That's what you had to do over there. Supposedly not here, but if you're in, in my business and liquor business in New York and New Jersey and all this stuff, yeah, it's a freaking People's Republic, Socialist Republic of what's it called? Of New York. And
No,
and 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 if this is not,
real capitalism has not been available in America for 100
yeah.
years.
So, but what I'm saying is, if these guys are nipped in the bud, maybe we will get real capitalism back. Yes, and
Or
Fauci
for the
and all the
first
rest of
time
these.
in many in
Yeah,
generations.
yeah, and since basically since they created the Fed, where we were, you and I went over there in Jekyll Island.
It's over 100 years.
Yeah, it's more than 100 years, 106, whatever, 108. So it matters, folks. It matters. It's not just like, oh, I want to get this guy because he pisses me off and whatever. Yeah, so what, how is this going to bring back whatever? It's going to give, like when the story of Purim, right? Haman decreed that the Jews were supposed to be killed, right? And then everything turned around on Haman. Haman was hanged. And then what do we read in the Megillah? It's something we read in Havdalah. Le'udim Vaikar v'sason Vaikar came to like the Jews rejoiced with happiness and joy. Like Le'udim v'sason Vaikar. We have to mention that. Like the guy was killed. Nothing ostensibly changed. Did their income go up the next day? No. But it's joy when evil meets its end and it gets justice. Justice, the hammer of justice comes on evil. It's joy.
Yeah, and when it's halted as it's happening,
it's infuriating.
You ever heard of folks, older 50-year-old ladies and older Olim Jewish ladies who listen to us? Please close your ears right now, okay?
Yeah.
But for the fellas in the audience, you know what it feels like getting cock blocked, okay? That's what Trump did.
Yeah.
To us.
Yeah.
That's what Trump did to Jews. That's what Trump did to Israel.
Yeah.
Okay. And because the joy was increasing, the momentum was building for the world. Everybody was like, wow, Israel acting like Israel. And he just couldn't have it.
Frank, when I got out of Shabbat and I went to do Havdalah with my parents, and there's a part in the Havdalah, and I found out what happened, that the Fordo was bombed. That part, I said it louder. Like I said it louder.
Yeah, I was also happy.
And then the blessing for the fire, I said, Moreh Ha'esh, like we bombed them. Moreh Ha'esh. Said it louder. Dude, it changes the fabric of reality when you do this. And when you don't do this, it's just it's the worst. It's mamish the worst. It's very bad. It actually almost makes things worse than what they were before. You get people's hopes up, and then it's just
stop it is sick. Is sick. This is the worst thing he's ever done.
Listen, I really hope
I don't want him to see punishment for this.
I really hope it's a temporary. I really hope I'm telling you, I'm holding out hope that it's part of some bigger. I'm not even talking about 5D, and 4D, anything.
Excuse me, sorry. You know what? Let's just compound what he said. That brain fart that he was experiencing for those few hours. He after he bombed it, he
seems to a lot of them.
He said this is the biggest brain fart he's ever experienced.
Yeah.
Okay, they know what the fuck they're doing, and then he commanded the Israeli planes to go
turn
back.
around.
Nobody's ever embarrassed Israel more than what Trump did.
But then he wrote, "Oh, it's going to be the 12-day war because they this and that," and he wanted to give them honor. I don't know. It's just bizarre. You know what I think? I think also he's somebody wrote today on Twitter, they wrote that Tucker Carlson. Remember how Tucker Carlson made that whole video how he had demons come to his house or something?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think him and what's her face and Candace Owens and all those Matt Gaetz, I think they're all possessed by these Sitra Achra demons.
They're demons.
They're possessed by demons, and because something happened to them. and I think that Trump
People are
something
not, people don't get
I think
possessed.
something is trying to attack Trump spiritually. I think something I think personally I think he consults with rabbis and I think he consults with other types of,
I don't think he does consult with rabbis.
now
I don't think so.
or some kind of spiritual advisors. I think he does.
I really, I
Because he
couldn't
thanked
disagree
he
with you
thanked
more.
God. He thanked God after this operation. You saw what he did, right? What he said.
Listen, Esav still grew
Yeah.
up around Yitzhak.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Trump doesn't have to consult with rabbis to have an awareness of God.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think he consults with rabbis because if he consulted with rabbis, things would be different. Things would be better. Okay. I don't think he does, unfortunately. All right. I think the closest thing he ever consults with is his daughter. And I don't know, Trump doesn't seem like the guy who, like, if somebody says, you know, you ever have fantasies like you're told you're gonna go talk to big important people, right? Like I always imagine, like, what if I was given the opportunity to go talk to Trump, right, and tell him stuff? I would decline it. You know why? Because I feel like Trump is the kind of guy who would listen to me, then do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like he talked to me just to find out what he should do, the opposite. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I feel about him.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. That's why, like, I don't. I think that whatever's guiding him is very, very unconscious.
Yeah.
Very, very subconscious. It has to be buried deep, and it has to make him think that it's him. It has to be him. He's not going to consult.
Yeah.
All right. He has to feel it's coming through him. That it's him. It's not somebody else. That he's the genius. And in a lot of ways, he is. Okay.
Yeah, he just told NATO today, you guys are going to pay your fair share. This whole thing. If he basically is forcing.
I'm a guy that I want to see Mashiach come.
Yeah.
And I want to see my loved ones again. And I'm not going to tolerate anybody who seemingly is interfering with that. I don't care what their agenda is. I don't give a shit. Okay, so if people, if you're wondering why I'm so pissed off, is because that's what it looks like to me that he did. Again, I really want to be wrong. Why do I want to be wrong? Because I like Trump. I don't want to be pissed at him for being an asshole. Okay, and also I don't want to be right about the fulfillment of messianic prophecy being delayed because of stupidity and arrogance. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to be wrong about all this. Okay. And let's say he's doing this because it's 5D or 57D chess. Okay. So which means that he's acting like an a-hole on purpose, right? So, and metaphorically speaking, he's pissing me off, meaning people like me, right? On purpose, because so he shouldn't be overly offended when I'm getting pissed off, when he's trying to make me pissed off by acting like a prick. Okay, I don't feel that bad about it. Okay. I'm not, I'm speaking for people of my mindset, obviously not me as an individual. Okay. So
Can I read something? Can I read something to you? Obviously we found out yesterday about this 12-er Shiite probably going to become the mayor of New York.
Yeah, I was going to say we got.
Yeah.
Before start, I want to talk about Curtis Sliwa.
Yeah.
Curtis Sliwa is a principled guy who's going to do the right thing. He's also a Jew-hating prick.
I don't think he hates Jews. I think he's annoyed by. I think it's annoyed at Haredim for voting for Democrats and living on the welfare.
Let me get a chance to get a feeling out.
Okay.
I'm not saying he hates Jews, but he hates lots of Jewy things that he doesn't understand. Possibly. And I just want to say I don't give a shit how he feels about those Jewy things that piss him off, because half the time they piss me off too. Okay, so I wanted to play the clips, and I have them like on one of my posts.
Oh, of him talking about Haredi people?
Yeah, first I posted a clip that's 3 minutes long about him talking about protecting the Jews of Crown Heights and his experience with the Rebbe.
Yeah.
On the one hand, he was saying positive things. On the other hand, he couldn't help but be a disrespectful prick.
Yeah.
I don't, and I want to say I don't care. Okay, because his actions, his words are bad. Okay, and he's a complete jerk in the type of things that he chooses, right? Because sometimes I feel like he doesn't want to sound overly friendly to Jews. You know what I mean? Because he's a Polak Catholic.
Yeah.
And you can't be too nice to Jews if you're a Polak Catholic. You can't.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Nevertheless, he's still protected. He still has a guiding principle of what he feels is right and wrong.
Yeah.
And he did what he could to protect Jews in Crown Heights against the pogrom during Mayor Dinkins' time. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of guy that you need right now, especially when Islam is about to take over New York City.
Yeah, and then I want to read something to you
domestic enemies
with regards to Obama and what we just saw last night about with this guy, this Mamdani guy.
Can I read the caption? I posted this. I said, "To hell with the only a Democrat can win in New York mindset. Curtis Lewa must be the mayor of New York City. Should have been mayor for a long time. Listen to him speak about the Lubavitcher Rebbe and how him and his guardian angels protected the Jews during the pogrom in Dinkins's New York. By the way, is that how you write? Is that the correct way of writing Dinkins's?
I guess, yeah.
I was trying to find it.
You know, British people would write that Dinkins apostrophe and then another S. Dinkins's.
They would write the other
like Saint James's.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay, credit to Sandy Backham on YouTube for this video. Okay, and if you can, okay, you want to play this one, and then we'll play what he says later. That doesn't sound very nice.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that.
I think he's just honest. I don't think he hates whatever. Okay.
Learn to appreciate their attitude, which was improve, don't move. We are not going to abandon ship. We are not feckless. We are not weak. We are not going to fold like a cheap camera. We believe in the Old Testament, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And even though I'm a Roman Catholic and I've been trained in the New Testament, it's the Old Testament that obviously guided me in developing the guardian angels. So when they came under attack, it was clear to me there was no gray areas like the politicians would say, oh, it's more complicated than you would know. There was one group that was correct, the Lubavitch. They were being victimized. And the black marauding West Indian youth were wrong. They were the enemies of society and the enemies of the Lubavitch. And I told our black and Hispanic guardian angels when we got there, it's us and we now. You either stand together and fight for what's right, protecting these Lubavitch, even if it means having to face off with your own brothers, your own sisters, your own blood, your own ethnic, your own racial groups, or take your beret and T-shirt off, and I never want to see you again cross the doorstep of the guardian angels. And nobody turned their beret or T-shirt in, and we stayed there for 3 months, morning, noon, and night, escorting the Lubavitch, protecting the Lubavitch, and at times battling the horde, the mob that was taking advantage of the crowd, until finally David Dinkins woke up out of his coma, his apathy and indifference, and 72 hours later put down the riot. In that time, I got a chance to visit 770 Eastern Parkway, the main shul, the main synagogue. It was a Saturday afternoon, the presentation by the Rebbe. It's Sabbath, so there's no audio capacity, no microphone. And all the Lubavitch are like little kids, the men, nudging one another to try to hear the pearls of wisdom dripping from the Rebbe's lips. To me, he looked like an old guy who was barely capable of thinking or processing thoughts, but they thought he was God's gift to the world, the Mashiach, one who would return, would be resurrected. I didn't buy any of that. But they said, ooh, the Rebbe's looking at you, Curtis. In the back of the room I stood with a whole bunch of Lubavitch. I said, he's not looking at me. Oh, he's looking directly at you. He's summoning you forward. I said, he's not looking at me. He's looking at everyone else. In fact, I don't even think he can see 10 feet in front of him, because he probably has hardening of the arteries and cataracts. No, he sees you. And they parted like the Red Sea for Moses and brought me to the front. And he was babbling and davening nonstop in a bizarre sort of way, almost like a whirling dervish to a point, but a verbal whirling dervish. And he gave me one Rebbe dollar, which he had given to some others who were lined up in a queue, but they bumped me to the front of the line. And then he gave me another Rebbe dollar and thanked me for the work that the guardian angels had done to protect the Lubavitch in the midst of the riots. Ironically, when I was shot in the back of the cab in the summer of 1992, The Rebbe dollars, which were in my wallet, were soaked in blood, except not his photo, which had been inserted on the photo of George Washington, which is the Rebbe. Now, make of it what you may. Maybe some of you are saying, oh, that's Madonna's Kabbalah, mystic, Lubavitch, Orthodox way of the shtetl years. Make of it what you may. I'm just telling you what happened.
I think a lot of the stuff, the way he says it because for, effect. He's a radio guy, He's trying to give you like
I know. This is before his radio days, I feel. But see,
he's been in radio for a while.
He was on the cusp of I'm not asking this guy to believe that the Rebbe was Mashiach, or I'm not even asking him to become Jewish or anything like that. See, even when he was trying to be nice, he was talking about something principled, he still couldn't manage to have the slightest bit of respect for the Rebbe and describing him, right? Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't care. See, because his actions were right, he still tried to protect the people, right? So he, regardless of what his personal feelings are about Jews, right, he's still guided by principles, meaning he's guided, his actions are still guided by some level of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, to the point where he does actions that are correct. Okay, now can we play in the comments? You'll see the other video of him talking crap about Jews who live off of welfare and study Torah all day.
Yeah, I'm just looking for.
It's in the comments.
Oh, it's in the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
1 second.
One of the guys who helps me to post my brother's stuff. Nice guy, Jewish guy. He's like, I agree with you, but here's what he said about Jews. Okay. I want to talk about that.
Big soul, the Jew guy. This guy.
Yeah. He's cool peoples. He's good peoples. He used to be a cop on a SWAT. He used to be a SWAT guy.
Interesting.
And we subsidize. We're talking about able-bodied men who study Torah and Talmud all day, and we subsidize them, and then all they do is they make babies like there's no tomorrow. And who's subsidizing that? We are. Doing it openly and brazenly, and our politicians are rolling over to them. Why? Because of the vote. And because they contribute. The big markets will write the checks, and the checks don't bounce because they know it's going to politicians. If we don't control the voting apparatus, they will control us. And many people would say, well, what's wrong with that? That's the American way. You vote, you get to make the decisions. Well, in a sense, they are correct. But they don't vote the way normal Americans vote. We're talking about able...
I think there's a context to what he's talking about. What he's talking about is actually something that you and I have a problem with, is the fact that a lot of the Hasidic groups in the New York area vote Democrat because of
in local elections.
In local, they vote for Trump, but then they vote Democrat in local elections because they get checks, they get subs, welfare.
Okay,
stuff.
Let me push back a little bit. They vote Democrat in local elections because the Democrats control the city, and they know that they would prefer to vote for a Republican, but they know how unrealistic that is. Yeah. And if they want their communities to get the benefits that they're looking for, they know they have to deal with the Democrats. So it's not like they're not promoting the Democrats because they agree ideologically. They're working with the evil that's the lesser of two evils, essentially, in their view. Okay. So if Republicans had real power in New York, they would be working with Republicans and ignore the Democrats as much as possible, because Orthodox Jews actually despise Democrat politicians. Ideologically, they don't see eye to eye, morally, socially, even politically. Okay, but they essentially have no choice. My brother had to leave New York during COVID because he went against Cuomo, and Cuomo threatened him in many different ways. Cuomo is your typical Democrat sleaze bag. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Crazy.
So that's what Orthodox Jews have to deal with. It's a mob.
Yeah.
The Democrats are a mob, And Orthodox Jews who live in mob-controlled territory have to pay for protection. Same exact system as the mob.
Yeah.
Everybody has to pay the Democrats for protection. Okay, you either deal with them, or you don't function, or you don't live. That was a system in New York. The Jews didn't create that system. Okay, all right. Now,
so
let's talk about. I just wanted to mention what Curtis Lewa, as you see, he's a few years older there, right? Yeah. And he's bitching and moaning. What he doesn't understand. There's a few things he does understand, and there's a few things he doesn't understand. Here's the primary thing that he doesn't understand. And this is what I don't agree with what he said. What he doesn't understand, that every blessing, everything that's good about life in America, especially in New York, in the areas that he lives, comes through the Torah study of those able-bodied men who study Torah all day. Now, I don't expect him to be able to understand that. I'm not mad at him for not understanding that, because God didn't make it easy to understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many levels of cultural, there's so much cultural klipot, meaning like husks that cover Curtis Lewa's consciousness for him to be able to understand that what's good about his life comes through the blessing of of religious Jews doing Torah study and doing mitzvahs and fulfilling mitzvahs. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't be mad at him for not understanding that. Okay. And one thing I'll say is that if I was in his shoes and I was looking at Torah at the Torah community and they were doing what they're doing, I would also be like, what the fuck is going on here? This is bullshit. Why are we doing this? It looks bad. And my only criticism against the Torah community is, have you tried to create a different setup where it doesn't look as bad as it does? I don't know. Maybe they have, and God made it impossible to make it happen any other way. I don't know. That's what drives me mad. Do you understand? Like, if Jews had the opportunity, if the Jewish community had the opportunity to study, to fund institutions and their studiers who study all day, but do it privately.
Yeah.
Then obviously that's the best way to do it. Yeah. Not to do it in this way.
And Lord knows, Lord knows they have enough. They have enough. You know, there's a bunch of guys in the community that do have lucrative businesses. There are at this point Hasidic guys, Hasidic specifically,
yeah, but I don't know if there's no Hasidic guys with real money.
There are, dude. I met a good number of them. I meet them all the time.
You never met anybody with real money, trust me.
Yes,
we're talking what I'm calling real money. The actual money needed, and what you're calling real money is not the same thing.
I'm talking about the actual money needed. I'm talking about.
I met a billionaire.
Yeah, no,
that guy does not have real money.
Who? A billionaire does not have real money?
I've met a billionaire. Okay. My father used to work for him.
Okay.
When my dad had a heart attack in the 90s, and he needed to get a less stressful job, so he took a job for a while as a personal chauffeur to a billionaire, to a Manhattan billionaire. Okay, that guy is a billionaire. You think that's real money? That's not real money. There's no Jewish robber barons who.
No, not robber barons.
There's no Orthodox, Torah observant Jewish robber barons who can actually fund what's necessary. You have to fund the paychecks, the livelihood, the food, the rent, and all the care needed for all the children of those Torah studiers.
What I'm saying is, there's enough of these guys in the community. If you combine forces, like I've met them. I met them at recently at the real estate event. I was pouring wine and spirits there. There's a lot of surprisingly in the what they call the Satmar, Hasidic community. I don't know if they have like hundreds of billions, but they have enough to where they can fund certain groups. But again, like at this point, the men in the community, a lot of them are working, a lot of them are getting into business, a lot of them are, pretty successful. Even the Satmar Rebbes told them, or a lot of the Rebbes told them, listen, some of you guys, yeah, you should, and I give you a blessing to go work, to go make money, and they do. And you should see like the lavishness with which they, my friend calls them professional chillers, when they put on events, when they do these things, it's all out of their own pocket. It's not
Okay,
out of the state's pocket.
listen, I get what you're saying. There's glimmers of hope. Okay, what I'm saying is the system as it's been, right,
Yeah, of
is not ideal. And what
course
I'm
that's not
saying,
ideal.
what I'm saying to the Orthodox Jewish community, have you, this is a real question. It's not a criticism. Like, have you tried to ask you to operate under the question, what if this welfare system wasn't available?
Yeah,
How would we go about doing this? What if it disappeared overnight?
yeah, yeah,
What would you do? And then just do that and
yeah,
get off.
yeah,
Okay. Um, so that's the only thing that I would say, because you know why? Because it would elevate the esteem of Israel in the eyes of the nation.
yeah,
The way that Israel is functioning now, when I say Israel, I mean the Jewish people, the Orthodox Jewish people who are observant, who study Torah and keep the mitzvahs, right?
yeah,
Those communities. The Vilna Gaon, he said it was very important for the esteem, for the honor of Israel to rise in the eyes of the nations, meaning the nations should look upon Israel and be like proud and have a certain sense of awe because of the great accomplishments and the virtuous behavior. It mattered to the Vilna Gaon, this supposed Haredi icon. He's not an icon, but like when you hear about rabbis in the Haredi world, the Vilna Gaon comes up quite often. But there's certain aspects of the Vilna Gaon's life that seem to be completely ignored. His
yeah,
emphasis on studying science and
yeah,
being the top scientist, and he wanted Jews to be the top scientists in the world. Religious Jews. He wanted religious Jews to dominate science. Okay, and that would be part of his plan to raise the image of Israel in the world. Okay, so the Haredi community totally ignored that part, right?
yeah.
So these super essential things that he emphasized are ignored, right? I think that's probably. I don't think that the Vilna Gaon would be very happy with the system in which they're operating right now.
Yeah.
Rabbi Eliyahu Kramer, a very famous rabbi
Yeah.
from the 1700s, okay, who was considered to be like.
Listen, I'm going to play Frank a video later, which you may not like, but they're speaking of things that the Haredim ignore in the.
I don't want to turn this into a Haredi kicking
No, no,
contest.
no. It's
We
not
kick them enough. We
it's
kick
not
them
a
enough.
Haredim kicking contest. It's
I,
actually
I honestly don't want to continue down this line. I don't.
it's a Haredi. No, it's a Haredi guy talking about something else. It's a Haredi guy talking, not bashing Haredim, but it's a Haredi guy talking about the mitzvah of living in the land, the mitzvah, the very big mitzvah of living in the land of Israel, and how, yes, there are a lot of valid things you could say about the government of Israel, about everything that goes on in Israel, about X, Y, and Z, all the things that today's spies can say, you know, but it's a mitzvah that's still it wasn't canceled, right? The mitzvah to live in Israel was not canceled. And unfortunately, when you come to rabbis in America and so much as mention it, they act as like a thing where it's like, well, if you can do it, it's not practical. It's like this whole like they just skirt the conversation entirely.
Listen, I want
Or
to tell you something. I'm sorry to.
I
I'm
just
sorry
want
to
to finish
stop
this.
you.
I just wanted to finish the sentence. When I bring it up, people bring up, like this whole Zionism, oh, we're not Zionist thing. They think I'm coming from a like political perspective. I'm coming from a spiritual perspective. It's a mitzvah to live in the land of Israel. There's, again, I mentioned this before. There's mitzvahs you can't do outside the land. And when you come to rabbis who have lived in Israel for the first year, let's say, of their marriage, or the first few years after they got married, to study Torah, and then they came back to America. And it's one thing if you want to tell people, well, if you can't go, and there's people who just flat out discourage people to go live in Israel. They stop people from going to live in Israel. There's rabbis who discourage others from I don't know, it doesn't.
Bro, as a individual, as a person, just
Yeah,
I'm speaking for myself.
yeah,
I agree with you that that Jews should live in Israel. The reason I don't live in Israel, I'm just again speaking for myself,
yeah.
is because of my family. They won't go.
I get it. I
Okay.
get it. I
Okay.
totally get it.
Okay. Okay.
I
So
obviously was not, addressing this to you towards you.
I understand.
It's a whole different
But
conversation.
yeah. So I just want to say that people, one of the primary reasons, look, let me back up. Allow me to address these points. Don't I don't think it's right to talk to people about living in Israel and bring up the mitzvahs about living in Israel because it's obviously not so simple and cut and dry.
Correct.
Because people who are saying it's a mitzvah, and if you don't take the chance to embrace that mitzvah, then you're a sinner. Basically, is what you're saying. That's what it boils down to.
No, I don't. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not actually what the guy who made
Just
this
give me a
video.
chance.
No, I know.
No,
He's not somebody saying though.
I'm talking about the majority of these discussions that I've had with people who promote the idea, these these ideologues
Okay.
who are pushing everybody, trying to motivate people who they're actually demotivating
I
people.
agree with you.
Reality,
I agree with you. I went to one of these conferences and I
all right,
spoke to
just let me,
people like this. Yeah.
dude. Please let me get some words out, please, man.
Okay.
I'm not. You're taking. I'm not talking to you right now. Like I'm not saying like I'm not like attacking you personally. I'm talking about this general idea and generally the people who talk about this. Okay. The whole thing about Jews should be in Israel is obviously not so cut and dry religiously. Otherwise, it would be unanimous among the Orthodox rabbis.
I agree.
There are some people who do, and some people who say not yet or not necessarily yet. Okay, that's why you see communities outside of Israel, because the rabbis did not go out of their way to draw consensus and say it's time, everybody must go. That's the bottom line. So you can't argue religiously with Orthodox Jews because they follow what their leaders are saying.
Correct.
So you have to gather their leaders and say, well, what the fuck?
Correct. No,
Okay.
so this is who the person is talking about, the leaders, the rabbis all he's saying is that they minimize the mitzvah aspect of it. That's all he's saying for for when individuals come to them, not communities, not entire, not like across the board, like everybody should go, that. But when a person comes to them and says, I feel like I want, I'm either whether it's a single or a family person wants to move there, I feel like it's my kind of time to move there. Not only because it's like, I mentioned this before. I didn't move to Israel because it's a mitzvah to live in Israel. I moved to Israel because that's just me personally, the weirdo, right? My soul is pulled over there, and it feels like,
You're not a
just like,
weirdo. You're not a
no,
weirdo.
when I say weirdo in jest, like I feel like I'm a weirdo amongst all the people that I know who live, like my friends and family. I'm like the black sheep. I'm the person who would go to Israel. Like I had a rabbi. This is actually my ex's rabbi. He kind of joked with me when I came back to America. He told me, he's like, you one of these people, you will is if they tell you you can live on the street in a box in the middle of Jerusalem, you're gonna do it. Not quite in the box. You live in this apartment in a box in this, and you'll do it. You're one of the few people that will do it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I know it's true because I personally want to participate in, whatever, building a country, and I don't really give a crap so much about my whatever, like creature comforts, or not as much as people here. And I don't blame other people. That's just me. That's just how I feel. And I feel like I want to be there. And my mom keeps asking me for the past 3 or 4 days. So do you feel like you are regretting, because I mentioned that I wanted to be there with my friends in like a bomb shelter, because at least I'm, home in Israel, and she asked me even today or yesterday, do you still feel that, you regret uh, that you're not there? I'm like, listen, what do you mean by regret? She's like, well, you could have flown before to Israel and been there, because she knew I was going to go work there, and I was like, listen, at this point, wherever Hashem wants me to be, that's where he wants me to be. I don't feel regrets. Yes, my soul is pulled there like a magnet, literally like a physical magnet. And I cry inside every day that I'm not there. And but it is, Hashem wants me here, I guess, for the time being, for whatever reason.
Okay, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So you know that comparison between people who say Israel's not ideal and the Meraglim?
Yeah.
This is wrong. And we've never said this
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Here's something we've never said on the show before, I don't think.
Yeah.
I have no memory of it. Another reason why all Jews don't live in Israel. Israel spits them out. The land itself spits them out.
Some of them. Not all of them,
It even
but some of
spits
them.
out
Yeah.
Israelis.
Some of them,
The
not
land
all.
itself is conscious, and it'll spit you out if it don't like you at that particular time.
Correct. Even the ones that keep mitzvot and Torah and do the right things.
All right, because some people somehow have some kind of support network that makes life in Israel possible, and some people don't. And
Listen,
basically everybody's like, if you don't have it, well,
but Frank, can I tell you something?
Dude, give me.
No, I want to address what you're saying right now.
On this topic, I have more to say though. Like
I'm gonna forget because it's like a little thing that you're saying that is not entirely.
You don't allow me to speak on this topic. I noticed that.
I want to allow you to speak, but you're saying a lot of general things that need answering because you might be wrong.
Saying them.
But you might be wrong. That's what I'm trying to tell you,
dude.
Okay.
Like listen. You talk.
Okay.
I mute myself. I listen to everything, and then I try to respond to whatever I can remember. That's just how conversations go. I'm sorry. I know this topic is important to you, but I got to.
Okay, I'm going to start writing down the points.
Whatever needs to happen. Okay, so a lot of people who have tried to live in Israel, right? The land spits them out. The society spits them out, and they don't, because people don't feel like they're being taken seriously. You understand? Like what Olim say, yeah, go there. You could, show a little, perseverance, show a little, character, go through suffering and this and that. The people who say that are never suffering. They're always set up. They're good. They're full of shit. Hang on a second. Okay. And they don't really care about the people. Like for instance, for all, this is something we said before. For Jews to really live in Israel, if Israel wanted Jews to come and really live, okay, they would offer Jews the same thing that they've been proposing for Arabs to get Arabs out, to go build them, cities outside of the thing, okay? They could have built they could just say, Jews, look, we're building you housing. We don't want to continue without you. We need you. Having you in our land is our number one priority.
Sir, I apologize. I have like
something going on in the
family, a family situation. I really apologize for the abruptness.
Well, if it makes any difference, I couldn't hear it at all. Like there's there's nothing coming through the mic, so it's like,
What do you mean?
In your background, like if somebody's screaming in the background.
No, it's not screaming. I have to go attend to something.
Oh, you got to go.
I not gotta go, but I have to go check on something that I might be just needed to be evacuated. Not evacuated, but like I have to go drive something or someone or go somewhere. I don't know. I have no idea. I have to see if that's the case.
Oh, okay. So go ahead. We'll wait.
Give me a second.
All right. Okay, so I'll say what I was going to say to him. I'll say to you guys, and then maybe he can listen to this. If all I'm saying is like this, I hate bullshit. If you want to talk about a certain goal and the realistic steps to making that goal happen, then fine. If you're not going to be realistic about it, if you're not going to take reality into account, reality includes perception, emotions, okay, things of that nature, then you're not talking serious.
My father left the house without his phone, and now there's like this whole situation that needs to be attended to. Anyway,
do you have to stop?
For now, no, I'm okay.
So basically, I'll just catch you up. I was saying to the folks at home that if you're talking about a goal but you're not realistic about it, it's
Yeah.
better not to talk about it.
Correct.
And and the reality of a goal is you have to take in perception and emotions into account, because that's what guides people's decisions. End of story. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what it
Correct.
is.
Correct.
So you can't tell people nowadays to have the spirit of a pioneer,
Yeah.
right? Because in those
Correct.
days, pioneering yourself from Krakow
Yeah.
in the 1700s or 1800s to Israel wasn't such a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. You still drove a stagecoach,
Yeah.
and you still wore your crappy clothes,
Yeah.
and you still had the same, it was not that different.
Yeah.
Okay. It was not that different.
Yeah.
All right. You still lived off the land. There wasn't bodegas that you can go to for convenience. You didn't have 7-Elevens with parking lots. You still had it was not such a huge cultural difference. Okay. In Krakow or villages outside of Krakow, you still had to figure out how to get some honey, how to get a cucumber. There was no stores. Okay. You knew somebody who grew them. You still had to go milk a cow. So it was not so different. Nowadays, everything, the modern world, right? Convenience, automation, right?
Yeah.
People have gotten used to a certain thing. So that's the perception, and the perception is what controls emotions. So if by telling somebody you have to have the mindset of an 1800s pioneer in the modern age is not a realistic thing.
Yeah.
Okay, especially when you yourself are not. Now, I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, usually
Yeah.
the person
Yeah.
talking shit
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't have to deal with what they're asking other people to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Okay?
get you.
Okay. So so realistically, and we've said this before, for Jews to live in Israel, the Israeli government, along with private enterprise and individuals,
Yeah.
have to put everything, has to be a national project to where they say, we want you home.
Yeah.
We're making cities for you. We're making
Yeah.
homes where you can come and you can live, and you don't have to worry about
Yeah.
being in the street or live in a cardboard box,
Yeah.
okay, or drive an Uber or
Yeah.
whatever. At least you can come and live, and then you can figure out, okay.
Yeah.
The problem with doing that is that what about the Israelis who are there
Yeah.
already? Why can't they're going to say, well, why
And
can't we?
and by the way, this happened to some measure because when the Soviet Jews came in the 90s, it wasn't like ideal and like luxury, but there were towns and homes allotted for them, and people were like, even though those same Soviet Jews, even though some of them, the ones that had like the master's degrees and PhDs ended up like, in the beginning at least, cleaning the streets. But still, people were like, "What the hell? You're giving these people, 1 million people coming into Israel. You're giving them housing, and all of a sudden they're gonna like, it's like these bunch of Russians, literally. Like, who the hell, all the Moroccans were pissed at them, and all the whatever were Iraqis, and all those people were pissed at them. Everybody was pissed at each other.
Listen,
We look back in laughter, but it wasn't so pleasant.
listen. Think about this for a moment.
Yeah,
Say Mashiach comes, right? And he says, all right, time for all the Jews to come to Israel, right? And he's still, God is still making him operate under the current laws of physics as they are now. So how would he go about doing it? So I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
He would say, okay, we're going to build homes, we're going to build cities.
Yeah.
They might be modest, but they would be cozy and accommodating, and it'll be what you need, and it'll be safe.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have a plot of land, you'll have enough room for your families, and it'll be of moderate modern convenience.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll have ACs, you'll have plumbing, okay, you'll have appliances, and you'll be able to live. Okay.
Yeah.
No one says you have to stay in that state, but at least you'll come and you'll have a pleasant, modest place to live, and we'll be together. Okay. And the Jews of Israel, you can participate in building these cities to bring your brothers home, show the love, show that you want them to come. Okay. And then, if you get upset that the same love was not shown to you, right? Then I'm gonna get the new Olim, right? The newcomers to come, right? And as their way of giving back, they'll build you new cities as well. Okay. If you want, if you want those kind
So,
of
so Frank, to
accommodations.
what you're saying, I want to mention something. Well, two things. One is, it's funny, when I made Aliyah, I was taught right before I was about to make Aliyah, this is like 2010. I was talking to a guy, Russian-speaking guy, who actually grew up, his family, they came to Israel when he was a kid, and then he grew up in Israel in a place called Natzeret Illit, Na Upper Nazareth, which is now has a different name. A lot of Russian-speaking, Jews were basically put there. There was like three cities: Afula, Natzeret Illit, and Migdal HaEmek. It's like we call it the Russian Triangle up in the north in the Galilee. So he grew up there. He went to the army. He was in like crazy battles in Judea and Samaria and in Lebanon and all these places, special unit. And he told me what he was like going at me kind of, why you want to live in Israel? Oh my God, da, 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 da. Everybody, Israelis, that whole thing. Israelis want to come to America. And I tell him, listen, man, the life that I'm gonna live, Israel is a small country, but depending on where you live and who you live around, what city you live in, you can have completely a different life from somebody 10 or 20 miles who lives 20 miles or 30 miles away from you. Like Jerusalem is a different world from Tel Aviv, which is a different world from Haifa, which is a different world, Russian Haifa, what I call, which is a different world from the north, which is different, it's different worlds. And sometimes those worlds don't even collide. So I'm trying to tell him, man, I'm going to live at that time in Tel Aviv, you know, with like a bunch of English speaking Israeli like PhD people, like my ex's friends. And then I remember I came to visit and I told them now I'm living with basically all Americans and Anglos in Jerusalem. It's a different world from like Kiryat Motzkin, like the suburb of Haifa with Russian speaking people. It's a different world entirely. The old city and all the these like English yeshivas and American people who made Aliyah. It's a different world. It's like Los Angeles and New York. I'm just there's no perfect analogy. And then I started telling him, man, we have today all of these organizations, they don't give you like a pile of money, but they give you something to start out with. There's Nefesh B'Nefesh, there's a Jewish agency. They give you like literally grants, like money, just like here's some money just as a start, right? There's like resources where you can find jobs. There's resources where you can find an apartment. There's groups. There's like today we have like WhatsApp group. Like I'm opening now here. Jerusalem apartments, free things, people are just giving away stuff in Jerusalem. Like furniture, literally like quality stuff. Like somebody selling a car, job posting. And I told him this. This is before all even WhatsApp. And he's like, dude, you know that I didn't have any of this when my parents didn't have any of this when we came to Israel. I'm like, I know. And Israel, think like every time I go to visit there, it seems like it moves at the speed of light. Like all these different developments that are happening. Again, it's not perfect. There's still a lot of like things that annoy me a lot, greatly. But listen, even since the time that I made Aliyah, there have been a lot of improvements in a lot of things, and there's just a lot of resources. Not perfect at all, but compared to what was, there's a ton of resources for people to find a job, for people to find an apartment, for people to find what is it called, a car, anything really. Um, Regarding housing, I literally had a meeting with somebody. I'm not going to get into detail to what because you always tell me don't spill the beans as far as what you're doing with business, but I had a meeting with someone. uh, They have a company. They literally build new cities, new towns, whether it's in Judea and Samaria or outside in what they call Israel proper from scratch. And it's not like, hilltop, caravan stuff. We're talking about what you're describing, like serious, like I call them like American style inside, with outfitted with everything. Just on the outside, instead of building with brick, it's built with, like what they call Jerusalem stone, which is actually quarried out of, it's not really from Jerusalem, it's quarried in near like Modi'in, near what do they call Abu Ghosh, like the center of Israel. There's a big quarry in Israel. They just call it Jerusalem stone. So, and there's like a bunch of these that were built just by this one guy, actually a Russian-speaking guy, who has this company that does this. And there's other companies that do this all over Israel. The only thing is it's not specifically built for, the Israeli government is not putting on a bullhorn and saying, "Hey guys, come here. We've built this for you," like Olim. But what I will say for those who know, and now people listening know, because I just told you, this stuff's available. But again, there's all this stuff in Israel that is available. There's all this stuff that's Israel that is happening, whether it's societal developments, whether it's the things that you're talking about, practical developments, the word is not getting out. And that is by design. Like we said this before, the Israeli government doesn't want people to come. It's almost as if the Israeli government doesn't want people to come. I met tons of Israelis in Israel where every time I visit Israel, these guys who are winemakers who knew I used to live in Israel, they're like, no, no. They're all like, when are you coming, right? Specifically to me, not, you know.
Yeah, that you can't say that.
I
That's not
know, I
everybody's
know, I know,
experience.
I know, I know.
They
No,
already know
so
you.
no, meaning, of course they know. Yeah, of course. But what they're really saying is, they know that I'm not going to have a problem. But the problem is they're saying this, but the Israeli government is not. And so there's a messaging, it's not a messaging problem, it's by design. Like I had friends, for example, during COVID, dude, this is a crime what's being done. I have friends who applied to make Aliyah during COVID. You know the number one complaint I had of all my friends who wanted to make Aliyah during COVID? And these are religious people. They're forcing us to give them the weirdest stuff, like original birth certificates of my dad's brother, which I never even had to give, and Soviet Jews have to give more things. They have to give because there was this whole thing. People who were born in Soviet Union, our stuff gets sent to a special office, even back then, to make sure that we're Jewish, even though they just let a bunch of like non-Jews in from Ukraine, but that's a different story, right? But when it comes to Jews from America, you got to show them literally your left nut to prove that you're Jewish. And now they're asking for more documents and more documents and more documents. It's almost as if they don't want religious people moving to Israel because they know most of the people making Aliyah from America are what? Are religious, different religious spectrum. Haredi, modern Orthodox.
And there, can I stop you there for a
Yeah,
moment?
yeah,
Just to boil this shit down,
yeah,
folks. The lefty fucking Jews of Israel, and to get an idea of who they are, right? They're the chicks that you like to look at on the beach in Tel Aviv. Don't want a bunch of bearded, cavemen like me and my friend Greg here to come and move to Israel because it's going to spoil their slutty
yeah,
fucking society.
yeah. So they're
And
not
it's
even
run,
yeah.
and it's run by those ditzy bitches.
They're not even telling you about already the things that have built up that could give them, that exists that can give them relatively a comfortable life. It's not going to be the lavishness of whatever, Lakewood or Muncie, but you'll live a comfortable, nice. These things exist. The Israeli government just not telling anybody about them. Like if I don't tell, why I started my page, my Nation of Israel, 34,000 fans, which can't see anything that I post. I'm shadow banned. To tell people about stuff that's going on in Israel that the government of Israel won't tell them, the media won't tell them, Nefesh, but these so-called Aliyah organizations won't tell them. Only a person on the ground, reporting from the ground, living in Israel or having lived in Israel or visiting Israel every so often, has friends over there, will tell them, hey, this house is available. Hey, this town is available. Hey, this cool thing is available. Hey, this modern thing that you thought that wasn't here is here. It's been here for 5 years or 10 years. It's available. We have everything.
Listen, I want to tell you something. When I was in New Orleans, there's an Israeli guy who opened up a restaurant, made sure it wasn't kosher because he didn't want
Yeah.
religious Jews coming there and feeling comfortable. Okay. Folks, just to let you understand, religious Jews are not Muslims.
Yeah.
We don't go there and start imposing Sharia law, okay? Torah law on everybody who doesn't behave in the way that we want them to behave, okay? Non-religious Israelis don't even want to see religious Jews because it reminds them
What they're supposed to be doing.
what they're supposed to be doing. They feel a guilt and they
Yeah.
don't want to be reminded that, or they don't want to have a sense that something they're doing is not right. They just want to live, without somebody there reminding them that maybe they're not living 100% correct. So the presence of an Orthodox Jew, a Jew with a kippah and a beard, right, would it just bothers them. Okay, they don't. Just the presence of an Orthodox Jew, right, in the mind of an ignorant secular Israeli is, they're thinking disco,
Frank, can
disco,
I tell
disco,
Frank,
disco.
can I tell you something to what you're saying?
God damn it! Let me just finish my
Sorry.
shtick for a
Yeah,
second.
sorry.
Okay, so they're thinking. So the Israelis thinking disco, disco, disco. Like the opening scene to Zohan. Okay, and even the presence of just an Orthodox Jew with his tzitzit hanging out, right? The fringes, the kippah and the beard, right? Bothers them. It reminds them that maybe disco, disco, disco is stupid, and they should perhaps be focusing on something more important.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the reason why they don't want. They're not. You see, it's not the type of Jews that they want in Israel. The type of Jews who want to come to Israel are the religiously inspired Jews, right? But that's not who they want. So they are.
It's
So
not who it's not who the you know what's funny? It's not who the government wants. You know that since October 7th, the citizens of Israel, they
well, I'm
did a
talking
they
about that
yeah,
group.
yeah, yeah. They no, well, they did a study that the citizens of Israel, the ones that you're talking about, disco, people are young people more and more are, starting to keep Shabbat, starting, like men starting to wear tzitzit, people starting to learn, people starting to get in. The people, like citizens, regular citizens, government people is a different story. That's a different story. There's literally a discord between what's happening on the ground, and also, by the way, in terms of like the unity, especially now, that basically, there's like kind of one common enemy. There's discord between what's happening on the ground with citizens versus the government, and it's funny because to at this point today, the people that you're describing, in terms of the citizenry, it represents probably 10% of Israel, which is like the loudest, when they go out to protest it, what's called the Kaplanistim. They represent 10% of Israel. And it's funny when I talk
If
to them,
that, if
if
that,
that, and when I talk to them, like I recently met, he's not one of them, but he's kind of like he told me he sees their, where they're coming from. He thinks this guy lives in Tel Aviv. He thinks he was visiting America, and he's like, he thinks that they represent 50% of the country because he's like, oh, Bibi split up the country, divided the country. I'm like, listen, I'm no fan of Bibi, but those people represent, they literally, people who live in Tel Aviv, some of these people, they think that the Kaplanistim represent 50% of the country. They don't. They do not. 90% of the country, even these like so-called left wing or left of center, secular Zionists, the people who vote for like Lapid and Gantz, they're not with this stuff. They're not with like tearing down the Israeli government, the Israeli society, and whatever it is. They're not with like having a civil war. It's just the 10% or maybe 5% that are funded by literally Obama and Soros that want to tear everything down. I mean, it's usually how it is. Um, so the big difference between what's going on the ground in Israel with the people who are clamoring for they are clamoring for
yeah,
spirituality.
there's development there.
Yeah, versus, dude, you know what I saw the most amazing thing?
Wait. Don't move on.
Yeah,
Don't move on. I wanted to cap that what you just said
yeah,
with the government like hierarchy, right? That created and promoted the insta-ho
yeah,
is secular Israeli culture,
yeah.
right? Does not like the fact that the is actual Israelis, the majority, are moving away from that.
Well, you know what's
That's
funny?
what that's what you
Yeah,
just said. I just said
yeah,
it in
yeah,
my
yeah,
own
yeah.
way.
No, but you know what's funny? On top of that, the Insta blank.
I knew you were going to do
No, no,
this,
no,
Greg.
no. What?
I knew
What?
you were going to do this, Greg.
No, what? Well, you
You're
you
gonna
don't
find that
even.
you're gonna find that there's even some Aish religious girls who are doing the insta ho. No, you
No,
were gonna say
you don't.
that?
You don't know what I wanted to say.
I guess I was. I guess I
We're
don't know what you
we're
were gonna
Dafka
say.
the reverse, my friend. That
Okay.
now these girls, that a lot of them who are, Sephardic Jews who you're going to see on the beach, come from families where, and this has have been happening for a while, especially in the Sephardic sector of society, where people, they'll do like Shabbat dinner, kiddush, and then they go out to they just that's how they live life. It's called the Masorti sector of Israeli society, and then they go out to a nightclub, and then Saturday afternoon they go to the beach. But kiddush is always there.
Yeah,
What?
but
This
I,
is no, but this is how it's been. I'm not judging them. I'm saying this is how it's been for years and years. And
I'm
they
not.
don't.
Okay, you're not judging them. I'm fucking judging them.
Listen,
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna try to force them to stop. But I
listen.
can
There's
say
an
this is
entire
wrong.
there's an entire movement of what is it called, of outreach for this demographic of people in Israel, led by Rabbi, what's his name, Rabbi, the Yemenite rabbi, the one that screams. No, what's
Amnon
it?
Yitzhak.
Amnon Yitzhak, and that is his target audience. He sits there and he judges them, but apart from judging them, he teaches them Torah, and he says, Hashem doesn't want you to go to the beach and be
Oh,
naked.
wait. Sorry, I just had a series of thoughts get connected. Can I share them quickly? I'll do it quick.
Yes, yes,
All right. Remember I was telling you about, okay, so Amnon Yitzhak made me think about that scene in Kingpin where that Amish guy was telling, the hot girl, he goes,
yeah,
don't be such a whore. He said that to
yeah,
her.
yeah,
Remember?
yes, yes,
She's like this, right? He
yeah,
goes, he goes, and she shouldn't be such a damn whore. Okay. And she just was quietly accepted it, right?
yeah,
In recognition. Okay. Which made me think of Amish people. And then I remember the Amish people who are building, they build towns in an
yeah,
afternoon out of wood when all of them come together to build, right? Imagine if Jews did that for each other in Israel. Think about it. If we
yeah,
just if we just absorb that Amish
yeah,
ethic to build to what the Amish, they build homes for each other and barns. When somebody gets married,
yeah,
they'll build a home for them. If we did that for our own people, can
yeah,
you imagine? Can you imagine? So that just goes back to what we spoke about before about
yeah,
housing and accommodations for our people in Israel.
yeah.
And okay, so now please continue. So Amnon Yitzhak is our
No, so
guy.
he targets these Sephardic Jews in Israel, and the ones who think it's okay to, like, just okay, we're just gonna do this Kiddush and Shabbat dinner. And by the way, those people I still very much appreciate, because by the way, they still have a lot of kids per family. Uh, every once in a while you'll bump into a person in their big family who is one of those people who keep Shabbat fully, and every once in a while there's like a guy who becomes more religious, or a lady becomes more religious in these communities. But he rails on them. He said, "Listen, he's like, yeah, there's a discord between what you're doing. You're trying to be traditional and all the rest of it, but then you're going to the beach and your daughters half naked. What's called a bat melech, a daughter of a king is naked on the beach, and then she's going to a nightclub, and some of these girls are getting like there's a now. Why do we have an organization in Israel called Yad La'achim? You know this organization? What is
I've
Yad
heard of it.
La'achim? They rescue Sephardic girls who get basically
We end up with Arabs.
end up with Arab. They meet them in the club, and so even Rabbi Mizrahi said, Muhammad, he calls himself Moshe, and he seduced the girl, and the next thing you know, she's married, living in Gaza. And then you know what he says? Rabbi Mizrahi, he goes, now you have this Russian non-Jewish IDF guy fighting against halakhically Jewish Hamas guy, because he's the son of this lady, and she went to Gaza, married this Arab guy, and he's technically Jewish because the lady met him in the club, and, blah, blah, blah. And this whole thing. Yad Achim saves these ladies. We have an organization called Yad Achim. They hit me up for donations every so often. It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on. So Amnon Yitzhak is like, listen, you're letting your daughters go to a club. Yeah, nice, kiddush, very nice, but what's up? Like, we're saving her from Ahmed and Mustafa over there. And sometimes just Arab towns. It doesn't have to be Gaza. So that's that.
That brought to you by the socialist
Yeah,
secular cunts who
yeah,
started the state of Israel. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Now, what what that means is what am I saying? I support Israel as a government. I just really feel very, very strongly that the form of government and its guiding principles need to swiftly and change to Torah principles in an emergency way.
Well, you can see it. It's been they've you see that the people that are fighting on these Kaplanistim, they see what's going on. They see that Bibi's giving the platform to troglodytes like us. They see what's happening and they're trying to stop it. They're not going to stop it. It's only a matter of time before the entire army command is religious or traditional. It's only a matter of time before the entire Supreme Court gets thrown out on its ass. It's
I have
gonna
to,
happen. It's gonna happen.
before we move too far away, I
Yeah.
just want to go back to the disco for a second, okay?
You really like this disco, I see.
No.
I know.
Not only the disco on Friday night mindset.
Some of the
Of,
best DJs are playing on Friday nights. I'm very upset. Yeah, go continue.
I totally agree with you. I totally disagree with
I
you.
want to go see if Steve Lawler's playing on Friday night.
Okay,
Can I do,
I'm talking
Frank?
about in Israel.
I know, I'm kidding.
Okay, so one of the primary, not only does it bother me that these insta-ho type girls are going out and being insta-hos on Friday night in Israel when they should be with their families and friends, right? It's the music that they listen to, which sucks. Their disco is crap.
It's
If it was good, I would be more sympathetic. I'd be like,
it's very
oh yeah,
bad.
they're coming to seek out, the
Frank,
sounds.
Frank, how dare you not like I'm not your toy by Netta. You
Bro,
don't like I'm not your toy?
bro,
How
I
dare you, Frank?
the music is so bad. I think that's one of the side things that pisses me off more than anything.
You
I'm
don't
just
like
saying,
Eurovision? Frank, you don't like Eurovision? What's wrong
I
with
think I
you?
would be nicer to these girls if the music was better. I think if the music was better, they wouldn't be such insta hoes to begin with,
That is true.
right? It's the music that's making them insta hoes. So not only is it bad to go out and to break Shabbos on Friday night and to go and do all this crap, it's such a sleazy environment. And the music is so bad. It's so wretched. Everything about it is wretched. And that's why I feel passionately about my anger towards this. Now, with that being said, let's show the world these two Italian gentlemen that we've
Oh my
discovered.
God, yeah.
But hold on, you find. I'm gonna go pee. I'll be right back.
Folks, there's these two gentlemen. They are called they've been around for a while. Since COVID, actually. Their name is Mind Enterprises, MIND Enterprises, and they are two DJs who play Italo disco. It's a genre. It's like disco, European disco, made in Italy, and it's stuff from like the 70s and 80s. Sometimes some of the stuff even from the 90s. And they dress. You'll see how they dress. It's a vibe, it's just a vibe. It's the way they dress. It's one of these guys is smoking a cigarette, they're drinking Campari. It's wonderful. And here's a example. They actually made entire DJ sets during COVID, which finally now people are discovering. They have a YouTube channel, but it took them 5 years to get like noticed. And I don't know about Frank, but I keep saying how, people are catching on to this whole 80s thing. I think that's why. So here, this is the I don't know their names, but they call themselves Mind, MIND Enterprises. By the way, these are tracks from like the 80s. Some of the stuff they produce their own, some of the stuff they play other people's things.
So when our theme song comes on in the beginning, I think
Yeah.
we should be
Yes. Yes.
like,
Smoking a cigarette, wearing a Lacoste shirt, and drinking Campari.
God, I hope smoking becomes when Mashiach comes,
Yeah.
becomes safe. I just want to smoke.
This is just like I mentioned this before, all it makes me think of just like, it's like when we first came to America, I'm a little kid, we're in a Russian restaurant, and I just see my uncle in his like white blazer dancing, and he has a cigarette in his hand, you know, and he's dancing.
Folks,
So stuff exactly like this.
folks, if you're confused as to why we think this is better than Insta home music, I'll explain it really quickly. Even though it's simple, right? It's like a simple beat. You know, you have a simple synthesizer playing these little things, right? But the vibe is romantic. They're always singing about romance. They're singing about romance and passion. Okay, they're singing about love. Okay, they're not dirty. Yeah. Like the dirtiest thing that you got back in those days was like, you know, boys, boys, boys. You know, like that's it. It was relatively speaking innocent compared to like I feel like even porn was innocent.
They had a song. There's a song. Remember that song? You're a woman, I'm a man. This is more than just a game. I can make you feel all right. You're my lady of the night. That's as raunchy as it got.
I gotta say, look, I don't like every song from the 80s. That's one of them. That's one of them that I didn't like.
It had a good production though. You gotta admit.
It had. I think it was decent, but to me, there's really one song that captures the energy of what I'm talking about, and most of the songs, which is "Unexpected Lovers" by Lime.
Lime?
Can you play that for a moment? Yeah, we've played it several times. Like Lime, Unexpected Lovers. If you could play like just until like, you know, it's basically a guy and a girl singing to each other about a romantic time that they, you know, the one night that they spent that they fell in love with each other.
Yeah.
And it's cute and it's kind of sweet. And if you're from the 80s, and especially if you're from New York, from Guido culture, right? This will hit you in the heart.
Yeah.
Let it play a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, this one. Yeah, of course. This is also Russian restaurant thing.
It's about love.
I know, of course.
It's not about homies.
Yeah. Wow. Not bad.
Okay, that's it. You get the idea.
It's a band from Montreal, and they were started on like 1980.
Yeah, they were big in disco. That's like the first kind of freestyle kind of style. It came from disco, right? But just listen to the lyrics. Like, we danced the night together until the morning. Like, who the hell sings about dancing all night together? And even if you spent the night together, who the hell sings about until the morning light, right? We were together until... They're singing about romance and love.
Today they sing about like their toxic relationships and
again,
whatever
folks, we're not approving of one night stands. No. But this kind of stuff at least is human and understandable.
Yeah.
Right? Booty shaking hose needs to die.
Yeah. You want to hear the lyrics of this? How can there be no love? No feeling of passion too. The way we were dancing, love. How could it be that I'm through? We danced the night together until the morning light. Baby, do you remember the music in our eyes? Such an enchanting evening. A lover's romantic night. The moon and stars are leaving. The sea was glowing bright. And then again, we spent the night together We were unexpected lovers, not just ordinary lovers, sharing unexpected love. My true love. We were unexpected lovers. Okay, that's
Dude,
like
compared to the music that's being
it's
produced
insane.
now,
Yeah,
that was written by Bach and lyrics by
yeah,
Shakespeare. Okay,
yes,
compared to what's being
yeah.
produced.
It's
All right,
it's absolutely astounding. It's absolutely astounding.
and people who knew, serious musicians, people who knew classical music, they laughed at this in the '80s, but
Yeah.
they didn't understand that it's Beethoven now, by far.
One of the tracks that I sent you guys, I want to play it. It's also something kind of similar to this. It's called. I never heard it before, but when I heard it, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I just have to find it very quickly. It was on Instagram actually, of all things. If I can find it. Yeah, I'll send you guys a bunch of stuff here. Chevy Chase. No, that's not what I sent. Um, oh, Bobby O and Claudia Barry. You know this song? Here. Uh, it's called Whisper to a Scream.
I feel like you mentioned this before. I don't remember it.
Here. Let me just the original song was by her. Oh, this song was like used in, Nightmare on Elm Street. Like one of the soundtrack things. Here. It's a live performance. I want to read the lyrics. I want to tell
I'm not
you.
a huge fan of that song, to be
No,
honest.
but because they share the female vocal, it's pretty good actually. I want to tell you exactly how I feel. The things I'm about to tell you, girl, most lovers would never reveal. Now that you're near me, it's time that I confess. The way we planned our love together, sometimes doing more is less. From a whisper to a scream, now I know just what it means. From whisper to a scream, I said I love you. Yesterday you were only mine. Today you're loving somebody new. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Are they lies or are they truth? Trouble is growing, comes from deep within. We spend our time searching for love, searching for love. Time is on my side, time is on my side. Will we ever be true? Ever be true, ever be true? How do you leave someone who's given so much to you? How can you leave this man whose only crime was being true? I'm waiting outside for you. Now if the only one waiting was me, waiting was me. From a whisper to a scream, I know just what it means. From a whisper to a scream, I said I love you. And it just keeps going on like that. Yeah, you could say it's like corny, but like, dude, man.
Look, it's talking about, people and emotions and love. It's not talking about debasing yourself. It's not talking about
Yeah, yeah.
specific type of sexual acts. It's not.
Right.
It's beyond what's been happening for music since 2000 has been beyond retarded.
Yeah. Correct.
So, anything that has a little bit of a human soul to it,
Yeah.
talks about love. And again, as Torah Jews, we're not promoting, uh, contact with the opposite sex before marriage, right? Or any kind of inappropriate sexual behavior.
Yeah.
But it's kind of understandable in a sense that it's human, right? The kind of stuff that's being promoted in music is not even human; it's literally demonic,
Yeah.
right? Like porno, stripper, like culture is just completely. I don't even know, man. It's gotten past the point where I can even recognize what it is. Like it's subdemonic. Like even demons
Yeah.
are like,
This is what I
guys,
was telling
you know
my
what I mean?
friend.
I don't.
I
You
was
guys
telling
have
my
gone
friend
too
today.
far.
Yeah.
You know.
I was telling my friend, like, remember the song by Rihanna, Under My Umbrella? And then I was saying how, like, it's just like a noise. Ella, Ella, Ella. It's like a hypnosis, like some kind of demonic thing. And then he shows me another song and he goes, yeah, I think this is the new noise that they came out with. It used to be that. Now there's a new noise. I'm like, yeah, there's a new incantation.
It's literal
Like
fart.
like a
It's
noise. Yeah.
literally a fart.
Yeah.
I saw a commercial where where there's like a kind of like a hip hop sound to the back, and the only thing you just hear a lady go like this, like this, like this,
Yeah.
like this,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, they're trying to,
This is.
it's almost like they're trying to, like, I don't know, hypnotize you, brainwash you. I don't know what they're trying to do.
Do you remember in the 2000s when supposedly seemingly intelligent white liberal women were dancing to and promoting crap like this? You know
Yeah.
when I first noticed it?
Yeah.
Tina Fey, remember 30 Rock?
Yeah.
And she's like, one of those, white liberal
Yeah.
intellectual icons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Apparently sophisticated, right? And
Yeah.
modern, and
Allegedly.
supposedly funny. And she
Yeah.
was like, I remember on the show, she was all excited and promoting like Beyonce shit.
Yeah.
Like as if we're talking about like Van Halen or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Beyonce.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, what are you up to, biatch? Are you like?
Yeah.
It feels like you're like you should know better, and you do, but you're pretending that you got some kind of agenda. And I said this to somebody on the twits today, that I feel like everything that the Jews are blamed for in the world, white liberal women are responsible. White liberal women
Correct.
is the true demographic
Yeah.
that is causing everything that Jews are being blamed for.
Yeah.
It's so.
You're right.
God,
Dude,
what a frustrating conversation.
Mr. Frank, can I read something from this guy, Tony Seruga, on Twitter? This is something regarding.
Is he one of those guys that Elon Musk keeps posting? Oh no, that's Mario Naufal.
He's sometimes reposts Seruga, but Seruga is it says investor, board member, big data pioneer, Intel ops, CIA, NSA contractor, whistleblower, healthcare M&A, space warfare tech M&A, blah blah blah. He lives in California. Conservative guy, I guess. So he just wrote this thing about this whole, Mamdani, the guy that wants to be mayor of New York. GPS, I guess they somehow follow Mamdani, I don't know, physically. GPS put Zohran Mamdani at Barack Hussein Obama II's war room twice in 6 weeks. Also present were leaders from the Muslim Brotherhood and what certainly appears to be two Iranian MOIS operatives, very likely IRGC Unit 840. Both are physically linked to Majid Dasjani Farahani, having met Farahani in Venezuela in June 2024. With the timing, they very likely were discussing the assassination of President Trump. By the way, those guys that I played you the audio, they're fleeing to Venezuela. A lot of these guys are fleeing to Venezuela, by the way. These were the same operatives who were regularly in the company of fake federal agents with every agency from the Department of Homeland Security to U.S. Marshals Aryan Tahirzadeh and Haider Ali. One was Pakistani intelligence while the other was Iranian. See the first comment below. It's unfortunate that most Americans do not fully understand just how evil Barack Hussein Obama is. Obama is 100% a terrorist. Obama's war room is located at 2446 Belmont Road Northwest in Washington, D.C., and just a short 4-minute stroll away from the Islamic Center of Washington, D.C. Do you really believe that this is just a coincidence? Seriously, if there were any legit journalists, they'd be reporting all of the coming and goings in Michelle's war room since Thursday. Anyone that doesn't admit Barack is in charge is either ignorant or lying. I said previously Barack Obama is the most powerful man in the Democratic Party. Period. End of story. He's a radical Islamic and the actual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. So he says Iran has infiltrated. So here's another post. The U.S. with fake federal agents more than once. This is from 2024. Remember Aryan Tahirzadeh and Haydar Ali, who tricked actual Secret Service officers, offering expensive apartments and luxury gifts to curry favor with law enforcement agents, including one agent assigned to protect the First Lady, Jill Biden. They falsely claimed at various times to be an agent with the DHS, a former U.S. Air Marshal, and a U.S. Army Ranger. They even tricked owners of 3 apartment complexes into letting them use multiple apartments and parking spaces for fake operations. What wasn't made public is one of the men worked for Iran intelligence and the other Pakistan. Nothing to see here. Here's another story. Next, we were updated as to why the Pakistani Awan family who infiltrated the Democratic Congress caucus through Xavier Becerra and Debbie called her washerwoman Schultz, and plundered defense secrets of the Pakistani intelligence ISI. Neither Becerra nor Schultz have ever explained why they were hired or held to account. The enemy is not only within the wire, they have taken over command. The Pakistani information technology worker IT staffer Imran Awan and his brother had full access not to just to DNC servers, but all House representative servers, emails, and clouds. They even leaked secret data from House offices to a secret server and Dropbox. So he links the Dropbox thing here. Here, there's another. Basically, Obama is running this whole show, so to speak. And
yeah, he's
yeah.
Gog.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane, folks. People don't realize that, like, essentially this guy, this Mamdani guy is being installed into New York, you know, to destroy New York. He's destroying Trump's New York, the New York that Trump built. Much as we're upset at Trump, he's destroying. He's there to destroy the city. See, it says there's another Amy Meck on Twitter. What have you done, NYC? India tried to warn you. You just handed the Democratic mayoral nomination to a communist Muslim radical, and no one said a word. In 2020, Zohran Mamdani told New Yorkers exactly the kind of mayor he planned to be. He posted a photo of Arya Rajendran, a 21-year-old communist mayor in India who leads the Marxist youth enforcers, and held her up as the model for New York City. That wasn't a joke. It was the blueprint. Arya was installed by the Communist Party of India, a party that praises China, Cuba, and North Korea, pushes violent class warfare and government seizure of property, uses red volunteers to intimidate and control civilians. Mamdani was saying loud and clear, this is the kind of leadership New York needs, and I will be it. And now he's one election away from making it real. The media, the Democrats, even the GOP, silent, no pushback, no outrage. They let a communist jihadi rise unchecked in America's largest city.
Not unchecked, promoted. They want this to happen.
Yeah.
Curtis Lewa is the only option for New York.
Listen,
Only option for New York.
I think, I fear that granted, polls can change at any time, and elections can change on a dime, but you never know. But I don't know, man. They say that but they say that Mamdani would win.
Of course, they're going to say that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's
they do the mafia tactics, like that, like that comedian who said, like, the Italian national, sprinter, in the Olympics. He's not the fastest guy, but he says to you, hey, maybe you don't run so fast. Accidents happen, on the track. Like, that's what they do. Like, Curtis Lee was obviously the guy who's the best candidate available to be the mayor of New York City. He will protect He will protect New Yorkers. He will make changes that have like the rule of law in mind. Okay. Um, he will do that. He's the guy. Okay. He's the right person. Uh, he needs protection.
You know what's crazy? The guy is a Shiite 12er Muslim, which is basically what they have in
he's an Ayatollah. He's an
yeah.
Ayatollah.
He's a mini Ayatollah in Iran. And, I don't know if the Sunni Muslims of, like Arabs and all these people in New York will like him.
No, they'll like him. They can unite to fight off common enemies.
Yeah. Yeah. Unbelievable. See,
General
this guy writes.
Ali Shadmani, head of IRGC's battle against Israel, was eliminated, wounded last week, and he died today from his wounds.
Yeah. Unbelievable. There's this guy on Twitter. He wrote some Muslim guy on Twitter in Australia. All you Islamists out there worried about Zohran's promises to decriminalize prostitution, just know he is doing taqiyya, like lying. Don't tell the prostitutes. Most of them are Zionists anyway. My God. Speaking of this, my God.
7 Jewish guys, 7 Jewish Israelis were killed today in Gaza.
No words, man.
There's 20 hostages left alive. 21 hostages, maybe, right?
Yeah.
If folks, just as a reminder, if this was a Torah government, on October 7th, hours after, maybe 1 hour or 2 hours after, first of all, there would have been much fewer hostages taken, if any, because they would have sent the entire force to completely crush Gaza. But let's say the Torah government only became aware of what happened by October 8th. Supposedly like the Israeli government, current Israeli government is claiming.
Yeah.
To get the hostages back, they would have just said, we're going to Moab you, starting from the top third of Gaza. We're giving you about 4 hours to evacuate because everybody's getting flattened. And then people would get out of the way. People would get out because they know that there's no point in even having a discussion. There's no more negotiations, right?
Yeah.
And then Israel, as they're fleeing, Israel would find a way to come and because the hostages would also be being transported, right? Or even if not, some of the hostages would die instantaneously, like everybody else, whoever's left behind, right? And then the Gazans would know that Israel is serious and everything they're doing is pointless, and they would give up. And they really would surrender. They really would surrender. And if it would have happened that way, many fewer hostages and even Gazans would die.
Yeah.
Okay. If the Israelis showed the Torah ethic and showed that they were serious and punished them for doing this evil deed, then many fewer people would be dead, and it would have ended within a day instead of 2 years later.
Yeah.
7 dead today to fight Hamas. Folks, just nobody's thought about the Hamas or the terror tunnels for a couple of days because of what was going on with Iran. But just so you understand, they've spent 20 years building an underground city because people are wondering how come the Israelis are so successful right in Iran, right? Which is infinitely more powerful than Hamas, right? How could they be so dominant in Iran and still be struggling with Hamas 2 years later? Well, because Hamas barricaded themselves. They spent 20 years building an underground city and they barricaded themselves underneath it, hiding behind people and infants and all this kind of stuff. And Israelis are killing themselves to try to save one extra of these demons who wants to kill his whole family anyway. Do you understand? Like that Israeli who sent himself, who was sent into some tunnel with with an IED set to explode, right? The people who he was sent in there to spare collateral damage, that collateral damage would happily behead his entire family, that soldier's entire family. That's the facts. That's the reality of what's going on in the world. Do you understand? Because there are people in the world who think that is acceptable. That's why the world is sick, and that's why the world is suffering. Yeah. That's 7 guys, 7 kids who are young enough to be our sons.
Yeah.
Like, if we had acted right, we'd be married and we'd have sons their age who are going into that shit.
I don't know, man. This is why it's like
Erev are born losers.
Yeah. This is why the only ones I trust are the like the people of Israel. My father's like keeps asking me, he's like, "Oh, I thought you wanted to go to the Knesset." I'm like, do I have scumbag written on my forehead? In your opinion? He's like, "What do you mean? What about there's like good people there?" I'm like, even if they start out good, they go there, they stay there for one term, and then they're never let back in again. And then ones who are let back are the ones that become scumbags. The ones who end up staying there for a while. Take a look, I'm not going to name names, but take a look. Either the ones that come from what's called blue blood, the ones that are, one of them, their father was a doctor of Ben Gurion. The other one comes from like whatever, some lineage. The other one is like a startup guy. The other one is like just corrupt, straight up corrupt. And by the way, doesn't matter if they have a keep on their head or not. I hate to say it. It's not a good place. It's not a good place for normal people, the Israeli Knesset.
No. The Knesset.
Yeah. They even named it after like something religious.
Folks,
it's astounding.
Just so you understand, for a bunch of Jews to start a government in the Knesset system, it's almost like a bunch of Jews praying in a church.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. We're going to run Judaism through the Vatican. What? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It's a sick system of government. It's a stupid system of government. And it is the reason for all the suffering of the Jews of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to somebody.
Just to lighten things up a little bit, I want to say here's a comment. I can't continue with this. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I got to function after this podcast somehow. There's Mr. President, this is from AOC. Don't take your anger out on me. I'm just a silly girl, right? But she wrote that. So I wrote, "You're not a girl. You're 35 years old." I felt like being meaner. I felt like you're not a girl. You're collecting Social Security already. Greg's a tough crowd today.
Sorry, apologize. Social Security.
Oh yeah, can I tell you what I said to Cynthia Nixon?
Yes. Oh my God, that genius.
No, I just wrote. I was so stunned with her existence, the fact that she even exists. I just wrote, "You're the worst thing that has ever happened." Some people agree. Cynthia Nixon is the worst thing that has ever happened. You know where I got that from? I got that from Louis C.K. in one of his old stand-ups. I know he's not a great.
What did he say?
He was talking about like all the trouble he was having with his wife, how his wife hates him and they have no sex life. And he's like, I just, it was like, so it's been so long since any type of intimate activity has occurred between us that even my wife, who hates me, was sort of like, she felt bad. So she just like, she gave me an HJ. I'm not going to go to the, and he goes, I got to tell you, that HJ is the worst thing that has ever happened in America.
Oh my God.
So that's what Cynthia Nixon is. Yeah. She's Louis C.K.'s
thing.
That's what she is.
Yeah. What else?
I'm sure that was helpful to everyone. That comment,
yes.
I'm sure that made the world a better place.
Yes. What can I? Is it okay if I play? There's a gentleman who lives in Israel who was addressing specifically the rabbis in America who tell people who have the means who want to move to Israel, but then they say the people will come to the rabbi and the rabbis tell them not to do it. He says, long list of excuses that Jewish people use for not living in Israel. There's one that stands out more than any other. He's talking about specifically the religious people in America. That my rabbi told me not to. It's mind-blowing that the number one reason for Jews not to perform this mitzvah is the rabbis. You may not like it, but yes, I'm going to be talking about this major problem. And this guy grew up in Lakewood. He made Aliyah recently. If you don't like what they say or you think I'm wrong, feel free to leave a respectful comment or contact me. He has like a video series called Homebound to Eretz Israel. I wrote to this, statements of rabbis in outside of Israel are largely political. They're against the state and have gone into their heads that the land equals the state, which as we know isn't true. What can we say? They love whatever, this and that. So, okay.
I hear him. It seems that way. It seems that way. It's not the case, but it seems that way.
We'll see what this guy...
Today we're going to talk about probably one of the most uncomfortable subjects in the Torah for American Jewry, the Meraglim, the sin of the spies. Now, while in most of my videos I try not to be too politically correct, in this particular video I'll probably be a bit more offensive than usual. Not because I want to, but simply because there is absolutely no way to speak about the Chet HaMeraglim, the sin of the spies, without offending a lot of people. So here's my disclaimer. If you get angry when someone exposes the truth about what's taking place in the world, or if you're uncomfortable with hearing someone quote Torah principles that don't align with your lifestyle, then this video probably isn't for you. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. In many of my conversations with people about Aliyah, we'll go back and forth on some of the most standard excuses used for not moving to Eretz Yisrael, and I'll generally disprove most of them, if I can. But no matter how many proofs and truths I bring, the final response of most Jews will sound something like this. Yeah, but why aren't the rabbis pushing for Aliyah? Or they'll say, my rabbi told me not to. Now, in many cases, this is the end of the conversation. Because as many will say, ha, do you think the rabbis don't know what you know? Well, actually, I spend an immense amount of time on the topics of Aliyah, Eretz Yisrael, and Jewish history. It's actually my specialty. So the truth is, I may actually know more than some rabbis on the subject. But that's not what the real issue is here. The real issue is, as some call it, the Meraglim syndrome. And now let me explain what exactly that means. So you can see clearly in the Torah, both with the Meraglim and the story of Ezra and Nehemiah, that there was a powerful Yetzer Hara, an opposing force, specifically when it comes to the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Now this evil force still exists today, and is still performing the very same task, to stop Klal Yisrael from uniting with Eretz Yisrael. And the truly unbelievable thing about this Meraglim syndrome is that it affects not only the standard Jew, but also the spiritual leaders of Klal Yisrael, and sometimes even the Talmidei Chachamim and Tzaddikim. As is clearly written in Parsha Shalach, where the Torah goes out of its way to state that all of the Meraglim were leaders and holy men of Klal Yisrael. Now, why is this? Why does this particular force have such power Why does it have such a strong hold on even the most righteous of men? Well, you see, the Satan has a simple job: to try and stop us from completing our ultimate purpose in this world. Now, although every mitzvah is powerful and rectifies the world, there's only one mitzvah that is the base for all other mitzvahs in the Torah. The Torah and inevitably Chazal tell us that the mitzvahs were given to be performed in Eretz Yisrael. Without Eretz Yisrael, the mitzvahs, while still powerful, do not have their desired effect. Therefore, the Satan, although he attempts to stop us from performing all the mitzvahs in the Torah, he puts by far the most effort into stopping us from living in Eretz Yisrael. Because if he can accomplish this, he inevitably accomplishes his entire task. Now, I'm not here to point fingers at any one group, rabbi, or organization, but I'd like to lay out some facts and some opinions, and you can decide if there's something unjust or untruthful going on when it comes to Eretz Yisrael and some of our leadership. See, as a man who's very involved in the world of Aliyah, I've spoken to many people, either looking to make Aliyah or who already have, and there's a very chilling common denominator between them all. And what is it? Their rabbi told them not to make Aliyah. Truth be told, this happened to me. Before making Aliyah with my family, I asked 2 different rabbis if I should make Aliyah. And lo and behold, they both told me not to. And what's the reason these rabbis give? Because it's too difficult to make a living there. And of course, as everyone knows, your kids will go off the derech if you move to Eretz Yisrael. I've also found that when listening to speeches and shiurim by different American rabbis and speakers, whenever the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael comes up, they all have only good things to say. They praise the beauty and holiness of this land. They speak about all the spiritual benefits of the land. But they always finish up their speeches the same way, with a giant but. But it's not practical. But it's too difficult. But we're waiting for Mashiach. Now, this sounds an awful lot like the Meraglim. After scouting out Eretz Yisrael, they came back to Klal Yisrael and Moshe Rabbeinu, and they said, "Indeed, the land flows with milk and honey. But the people there are too big, they're too powerful, and we simply cannot conquer it." With regard to every mitzvah in the Torah, we're given chizuk. We're told stories about great tzaddikim who gave up so much to perform certain mitzvos and learn Torah, even in times of great danger and difficulty. But when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, we're never told the stories of all the great tzaddikim who put their lives on the line to live here. We're never given the chizuk or motivation to perform this great mitzvah. You won't hear about it in speeches, nor read about it in any mainstream religious magazines or newsletters. Eretz Yisrael has become the mitzvah that we save for Mashiach. Because this mitzvah is too difficult and too dangerous and simply too risky. Emunah and Bitachon have become amongst the hottest topics in Klal Yisrael, except in regards to Eretz Yisrael. We're told it would be reckless and dangerous for a family to have Bitachon, to trust in Hashem, that they will be able to make a living in Eretz Yisrael. Now, it's true that making a living in Eretz Yisrael is somewhat challenging, but that's only because of its comparison to America. See, it's hard to compete with a country living at the highest level of comfort and luxury that humanity has ever experienced. But that is absolutely not a Torah value. I assure you that as of today, the Jews in Eretz Yisrael are living more stable and more comfortable lives than 99% of the Jews throughout all of Jewish history. Here in Eretz Yisrael, I've never heard of a Jew dying of starvation or needing to sell himself as a slave to put bread on the table. Jews here are doing just fine, some better than others. But not being able to eat steak 7 days a week or have 3 cars parked in your 300-foot driveway isn't called poverty. See, I find it interesting because struggling financially in order to perform mitzvos and get closer to Hashem has always been admired in our religion. But with regard to Eretz Yisrael, it's deemed dangerous and reckless. And now, of course, the most common excuse you'll hear for not making Aliyah is that your kids will go off the derech. Many Americans claim that there's a major off the derech pandemic here in Eretz Yisrael, and some will go so far to even say that the government here is still actively working on destroying Torah and Judaism. Well, I got news for everyone. It's time to wake up. Even if these excuses were once true, they no longer are. The so-called evil Zionist agenda has fallen apart many decades ago. There is currently more Torah and spiritual institutions here in Eretz Yisrael than anywhere else in the world. And in regards to the children going off the derech, I got news for you. That's a problem all over the world. No more here in Eretz Yisrael than in America or anywhere else. People claim that the yeshiva systems here don't cater to American children, but that simply isn't true anymore. More and more yeshivas and high schools geared for Americans are opening up all over Eretz Yisrael, specifically in Beit Shemesh. I myself and many others involved in the world of Aliyah have spoken to mechanchim, principals and rabbis involved in the education system in Beit Shemesh, and they have almost all said the same thing, that the education system here has fully adapted to dealing with healthy and productive integration of children from American families. And there are more and more high schools and programs opening up for American Bachurim every day. So if your rabbi or anyone else is still making the claim that your children will struggle, they won't be able to find a school, they'll go off the derech here in Eretz Yisrael, they are either misinformed or ignorant to the facts on the ground. Using excuses from 20, 30, or even 40 years ago to stop Klal Yisrael from moving to Eretz Yisrael is both selfish and sinful. And even if these lies about Eretz Yisrael were true, I ask you, why are children in American yeshivas not educated on the importance of the great mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael? Why aren't teenagers being motivated to look into starting their lives here in Eretz Yisrael? Why aren't newlyweds and young families being pushed to spend a year or two in Eretz Yisrael before they have older children who can go off the derech? There simply is no excuse for any of this. To millions of Jews, Eretz Yisrael is nothing more than a Mashiach fairy tale, and isn't even a mitzvah that carries any weight whatsoever. Some rabbis will have convinced hundreds, sometimes even thousands of Jews not to move to Eretz Yisrael, and of course, all in the name of your spiritual well-being. They'll tell you that your ruchnius and that of your children can be negatively impacted by what goes on here in Eretz Yisrael, even though the Torah seems to make the exact opposite claim. Hashem commanded us to live here in this land. He told us that this land is where we should be performing the mitzvos, and that it is the most conducive place in the world to spiritual growth. Chazal, throughout all of the generations, have taught us about the immense spiritual benefits of Eretz Yisrael, how its ear makes one wise, how much quicker we can grow in Torah and mitzvos, and that even its dust is sacred. But many Rabbanim in America seem to know better. Tens of thousands of Jews in America take lavish vacations, spend Pesach and Sukkot in 5-star hotel programs, blowing hundreds of thousands of dollars to stuff their faces with lavish meat boards. In cities like Lakewood, there are more and more boutique clothing and food stores opening up every single day. The standard size of Jewish houses has become nothing less than that of a palace. The expectation for weddings and bar mitzvahs have become absolutely sickening. But all this is fine for your ruchnius, as long as you don't live in Eretz Yisrael. All this can only be explained in 2 words: the Meraglim syndrome. It seems as if there's an entire treasure chest of chumras and ideology that don't apply to any part of our Torah, except for Eretz Yisrael. Now, even if there was any validity to these claims against Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, I ask everyone with a healthy Jewish mind, how do you view Israel's War of Independence? How do you view the 6-Day War? If you don't know what really happened on those days, I suggest you brush up on the basics of recent Jewish history. The events that took place during both of those wars were completely open miracles. Not just for the Jewish people, but even for the world at large. And I ask all of Klal Yisrael and our leaders, do you think Hashem performed those miracles as a joke? Was there a reason for the miraculous outcome of those wars, which led to the Jewish people reconquering Eretz Yisrael? Is there any meaning behind the miraculous return of already 7+ million Jews to Eretz Yisrael? For the world to experience those miracles and learn nothing is not surprising. But for the Jewish people, these are events that we are literally witnessing right now with our very own eyes. And ignoring Hashem's miracles has never worked out very well for the Jewish people. Now, with all of this being said, we can look back at the Meraglim and see how similar our situation is today. Hashem brought the 10 plagues. He split the Yam Suf. He rained man from the sky and performed countless miracles on behalf of the Jewish people. Yet all the Meraglim could see was the hardships in living in Eretz Yisrael. And they let their fears overpower their logic and their trust in Hashem. Instead of seeing the long list of spiritual benefits that this land has to offer, they could only focus on the challenges that they fabricated in their very own minds. And what was the response of Klal Yisrael? They responded, "Why is Hashem bringing us to this land? To fall by the sword, and our wives and our children will be taken captive. Let us go and return back to Mitzrayim, to the land of Egypt." And Hashem's response to this was, "Until when will these people provoke me and keep ignoring all the miracles that I've performed for them?" This sounds an awful lot like our situation today. Do you truly believe that Hashem changed the course of nature, performed open miracles, and allowed us to return to Eretz Yisrael simply to have our children go off the derech here, and to force us to live in abject poverty? Great events and miracles that take place in the world, especially in Eretz Yisrael, they're for us. They're for us to see the signs, the messages. They're ways of Hashem communicating with us. And it's of utmost importance for us to pay very close attention. And as some commentaries explain on Parsha Shalach, the reason the Jews didn't have the strength to trust in Hashem and to enter Eretz Yisrael is because they just left Egypt. These Jews still had a weak, slave-like mentality and didn't have what it takes to conquer and build up the Holy Land. which is why they all had to die in the desert, and only their children, the next generation, the fresh generation, could enter and conquer Eretz Yisrael. So I beg you, do not be weak. Don't let those with the Meraglim mentality tell you that you're not strong enough to handle the challenges of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. For once in Jewish history, let's get this right. Let's trust in Hashem, conquer the Meraglim syndrome, have emunah and bitochen in the creator of the universe, and take the gift that he's given us and that he promised our forefathers, the land of Torah, the land of Kedusha, the land of God. Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and courageous, and never back down from making the greatest Kiddush Hashem in all of human history.
Okay, allow me,
obviously,
please.
no, I was just going to say one quick thing. He's obviously talking to people who want to make Aliyah. He's not saying everybody should, but he's talking to people who come to the rabbis, people who live in America, who want to make Aliyah and who are discouraged discouraged from it. I will say that we have a famous idea. I think we mentioned this before, that it's almost like Hashem had to slip everything in, so to speak, through the back door. He had to do what's called trick the Satan. Meaning we had this stupid government and we had it for a while, and he allowed it to, continue.
It's funny, the same people who argue Hashem had to do it like this and had to do it like that, not you, but where you got these ideas from, have a problem with God needs.
No,
we can't say that, but God had to. He couldn't have done it some other way.
Listen,
continue, please.
I don't know. I don't know what they have problem with him or not. I'm just telling you that now it seems like Hashem is lifting that veil, or the veil is being lifted on, here's what I really wanted to do, which is to bring the Jews back. And yes, the land of Israel, since probably the 70s, the land of Israel has been the Torah capital of the world. Even those people who are discouraging everybody else from moving to Israel, or the people who don't want to move to Israel, they send their kids for 1 or 2 years to yeshiva in Israel. And then they're asked, why do you do that? Because the absorption of Torah, Frank, you went to yeshiva in Israel, your brother went to yeshiva in Israel, I went to yeshiva in Israel. The absorption of Torah in Israel, what you can accomplish in like a very short period of time in Israel, even less than a year, is like parabolic. Like the chart is like this 90-degree angle chart versus what you can do outside. And
not for me.
What do you mean?
Okay,
I'm just saying it's a common.
Say that.
Yeah, no, it's not just saying. I mean, I experienced myself, and I know a lot of people experienced it.
I didn't experience it, but I'm saying that other people have.
It sucks that you didn't find the right environment. I mean, from what you told me, I feel like there's no environment. Doesn't matter where in Israel or outside of Israel.
I'm saying I'm blaming myself. I'm not blaming. Look, I'm the one. I believe that I was the first one to say I'd like to say something now. You said okay, and then
I apologize. I just want to say quick things. Yeah.
The Gettysburg Address. 4 scores and 7 years. What are you going to say?
No, nothing. I'm done.
Oh no, I thought you were going to say something else.
No, it's so God kind of just decided to do it, apparently with hindsight 2020.
He didn't need to, did he, Greg?
What do you mean he didn't need to?
I'm not kidding that. I'm doing.
I know. I get
right now. Okay.
Listen, but to answer that question for those who
no, don't answer that question. I want to talk about what this guy said.
Okay.
Just to start, I agree with him that Jews should go and live in Israel. I agree with that. Okay. Question is how to make that happen. That's where I do not agree with him at all. Okay. Now, what he has is a budget, obviously, and he has a studio, and he has production, and he has somebody who does the editing and makes a nice presentation, and he has dramatic music playing in the background, and whatever. He's a handsome fella, whatever he's put together. Okay. He has all that, but most of what he said is crap. There is absolutely zero comparison between the Jews of today and the Miraglim from here. Let me just bring out some of the primary differences. Okay, it's okay. No one's. I'm not going to hurt this guy's agenda because no one watches us, and I'm sure he got a lot more views. Okay,
You never know.
okay.
We might end up being like those Campari guys.
This is just on a side note. This what I'm about to say is not. If I had to choose what went viral, it wouldn't be this because
we may just end up like blowing up like the World Trade, as Biggie used to say.
But hopefully not this particular thing that I'm about to say.
Oh,
okay?
knowing us, Frank, it will be this. Very good. Continue.
Just because I don't want it. Right? Okay. Because I don't want to hurt this guy. Overall, I hope the result is the same, but he's just wrong. Okay. The Miraglim were bad for several reasons. What did they have? Let's see what they had. They had God literally commanding them, saying, "You have to go. I'm sending you there to Israel, and I will defend you. I will fight your wars, and I will bless you and establish you every step of the way. You have my guarantee." And folks, they had the prophet Moses. They had the sanctuary. They had the Urim and the Tumim. They had it all. Okay? They had the full blessing of God. There was no doubt whatsoever. Okay? So they were bad because they went against all of that. That's bad. We are coming out of a situation where God literally spit us out of Israel for 2,000 years. He spit us out. And at no point did he give us a clear mandate or objective, a clear communication saying, okay, now you go back in and I will bless you and I will protect you. And no, he left it vague. He left it vague. We don't have a Moses who told us, go and do this, what God said specifically. Thus saith the Lord, you will go into Israel and you will go live here and you will go live here and you will do this and you will do that. That was all laid out for them, folks. Okay? We have none of it. There's actually a region of Canada called none of it. That's what we have. We have none of it. Okay? There could not be a bigger difference between us and the Miraglim. The Miraglim had clear instructions. We have vagary and discord. Okay? And in those days, the only apparent enemies we had were the supposed giants who lived in the land of Israel, right? Who made us feel like crickets and all this kind of stuff. But but we had God saying, don't worry about them. Doesn't matter how big they are. I'm God. We have the Erev Rav who don't want us in Israel. Yeah. Okay. And we don't have God saying, go, I want it for sure. We don't have it.
We don't have it. Yeah.
Not even
you're
close.
right. You're right. So what I will say, I'll say, I'm not pushing back on you. I'm just going to say a side thing that we don't have it, but a Jew, like I can only speak for myself, but I've heard other friends tell me, friends who have made Aliyah, a Jew can sense for himself if Hashem, wants him to be in Israel or not. There are some people who merit to either live in Israel or be involved in Israel in any way. And there's other people who, like Hashem calls you. You ever remember the movie Coneheads, where they were like called back to it's time to leave, that kind of thing. No, I'm just saying, like, it's just the funniest thing to me, okay, it's time to, like, at some point there's like a microchip that goes off, For me, it went off. Other things went off, but for me, the microchip went off.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Yeah. So
I want it to go off for everyone.
No. So on top of that, by the way, based on what you're saying about that, we don't have this and we don't have what they, the instructions that they had, which makes it, basically, first of all, the people who do end up making Aliyah and taking a chance, even if whether it works out or it doesn't work out in the end, at the very least, to even so much as take that leap makes someone, in my opinion, as much of a tzaddik as, people back then, because we don't have anything. All we have is our amuna and our bitachon. Really, that's all we have, and our just kind of like connection to our forefathers and foremothers, and that's all that's guiding us. And God, of course, but like, again, it's a big leap. It is a big leap. I tell this to everybody. I tell people I'm not, I mean, listen, I'm of the opinion that at least now people should at least start thinking about it just because of everything that's going on. The worst reason that people should move to Israel is because, Cossacks are chasing them, Ayatollah, mini Ayatollah's chasing them, or somebody's chasing them with a bullhorn in Los Angeles and whatever, right? It's the worst reason to make Aliyah. It's a shame that people have to make Aliyah because somebody's chasing them out of somewhere. But now that everything is happening, I am telling them at least like have that as an option, right? Even if, yeah, there are other states you can live in that might be safer than, let's say, New York or New Jersey or stupid blue states. There are, there's Florida, there's Texas, there's these different places. But again, as we've seen in Jewish history, there is no like insusceptible place. And the difference was in all these times of Jewish history, we really didn't have Eretz Israel. We didn't have Eretz Israel to flee to. I mean, except for the rabbis, most people would not be fleeing. The people who got kicked out of Spain, for example, right? A lot of them went to the Ottoman, the Sultan. He said, how can you call Ferdinand a wise king? He impoverished his country and enriched mine. A lot of them went to Turkey. A lot of them went to the Ottoman Empire. They didn't have a lot of people were not going to go to Israel. Israel was barren. They would get trampled.
I hear you, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But yes, like again, just to add to, like, this is nothing like the Miraglan.
No, I know it's not. I know it's not.
In fact, a lot of what the Miraglan said, which was false, a false report about Israel, is actually true now. Oh, they're going to take our people captive. They are going to take your people captive, and Israel won't do shit about it. And they'll even help. They're not going to do shit for like 7 hours, and they won't be successful in getting any of them back for over 2 years.
Yeah.
Look, folks, I want you to move to Israel if you can get your family to cooperate with you. Okay. I'm not going to tell you move to Israel without your family, because that's not something that I'm going to do. I'm not saying I consider it, let's say, perhaps a weakness. I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. I just know that I emotionally can't.
No, I don't blame you. No, I mean, I don't.
Which means I'm not going to jump on anybody else for not doing that. Okay. And the only reason I would move to Israel is because I think overall, I don't know if, I'm not talking about like specific moments here and there, but overall, God wants Jews to live in Israel. Okay. Yeah. And I want to cooperate with him. Okay. Because I know the Torah is real. I know he's real. So I think it's a good idea to cooperate with him. For that reason, I think, it would be best for the whole world if I lived in Israel, but I can't do that until, I have the full cooperation of my family. I just can't leave my family who they don't see it my way.
No, I get you. Listen, that's the primary thing. I personally, at this point, I don't, I don't like people who deride others that they don't want to come to Israel. I personally don't deride others. My whole thing is, if somebody does want to move and somebody's discouraging somebody from moving, just based on these like kind of like what I call religio-political reasons, out of Harediism, I don't know how else to call it, out of anti-whatever's-ism, out of blah blah blah-ism, that's something I can't respect. Another person telling another Jew, unless it's like a Kabbalist where he has like, what's called Ruach HaKodesh, and he says, it's not good for you right now to, like, unless it's like the Rebbe telling somebody, yes, go to Israel, or yes, don't go to Israel, and a person knows like they know. Like, dude, I have a friend, right? He is going to come, he lives in Israel, he's going to come on wants to come on a business trip for like a couple of months here to America with his family, right? Over the summer. It's something that they've been doing for a while. And he said to me, I have to first consult with a mikubal on this. It's a mikubal I know, and he tells me, and usually he's, most of the time he's right about these kind of things. Where should I travel? When should I travel? And I said, yeah, that's legit, and vice versa. But for a person out of their own personal, what's called hashkafic, whatever, and blah, 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 and all this, and telling another person and applying their own thing to another person without considering even the other person's anything, that I'm against that. And something a rabbi tried to do to me. And actually, it was done to me. It dafka was done to me. And when I came back here, they told me, how are you going to, what schools are you going to send your kids to in Israel? I said, well, I'm not really part of any particular group. And then this rabbi told me, well, it's okay for somebody like you. You're a Baal Tshuva, and there's a lot of people like you. But for your kids, the kids are going to be confused and blah, 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 blah. I found out later that was total bullshit, what he said, okay? There's plenty of schools in Israel for,
Yeah, that's all crap.
it's
100%.
all, and he did not even consider who I am and what my direction is and what my life is and all this. And like a schmuck, I listened to him.
Look, if I'm not saying, look, I'm pretty sure that, let's talk about for a minute, how can we get American, even if without the pre-built buildings for them, right? Let's say we can't finance that. How would we get all the Jews to Israel? What would we do? It would have to be some kind of cultural revolution in Israel,
Yeah.
where Israelis begin picking Jewish families outside of Israel and writing letters to them, like you sponsor a family emotionally and say,
Yeah.
I heard that you're living, I'm a Jew from Israel. I don't know you, but I heard that you're living somewhere, in New York. Okay. And I want you to come home. I want to establish a relationship with you. I want you to come to my community.
Yep.
Okay. And we're going to help you however we can. We can't guarantee it's going to be as comfortable to you, but we want you here. We feel the emptiness, the vacuum that your presence needs to fill.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't want to go on without you.
As they like to say to me, we are waiting for you.
We feeling your absence, and then seriously, and then be serious. Please at least come visit, right? And maybe you could stay with us, and maybe you could figure out a way that you can make a life. And we can't, we obviously can't promise you American comfort, but we can promise you love.
Frank, do you know what happened?
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, so I used to, like they have the Christian Children's Foundation. I forgot the name of this charity, but you sponsor a specific kid in Africa. I remember doing this for a while, right? Where you get even letters and pictures of his progress. You'd pay for his education, you'd pay for his books, for his pencils, for his water, for whatever, that kind of stuff. I remember getting letters from this little kid.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just saying that the Jews in America would have to be called to come home.
Yeah.
By the super privileged Jews of Israel.
Yeah. Frank, do you know how I know that Hashem, you're saying that the Meraglim had all this and all that. You know when I got the message from Hashem that what I had done, after thinking for a few months that what I had done was the stupidest thing I had ever done and craziest thing I'd ever done, and I should not have done that. Meaning the first few months that I was living in Israel, I was like, what the hell did I do this for? About after I got my first job in Tel Aviv, and it wasn't really going so well, whatever. The people I was working for, whatever, I won't even get into it. But this Yemenite guy who was the president of a stock trading firm, an Israeli stock trading firm in Herzliya, a traditional guy, Shomer Shabbat guy, not Haredi, just like traditional, some way, somehow, I don't know how, my resume landed on his desk. And he called me when I first got my job, and then he's like, okay, here's what I want to do. And let's just be in touch. Let's be, as we say in Russian, на связи, let's be just connected. So when it came time for me to leave the place that I was working at, this is already 3 months later, he was like, okay, let's meet up. I met him for coffee outside where I used to work right before I quit. And then he started, he kind of started prodding me. He's like, why would a guy like you drop everything and come to Israel and all this kind of stuff? And he didn't mean it in a negative way. He meant it like he was trying to get, you know, see what I'm made of. And I was like, well, I'm becoming a little more religious and I feel like it's my home and I don't really feel anything in America. And I gave him this whole spiel. And he's, Greg, I really respect people like you. He's like, I'll tell you something. I have an uncle in Kansas and he became a multimillionaire guy in Kansas. His competition is whatever. He's like, it's a Jewish Israeli guy. He came to Kansas. He's competing against these cowboys and he just, knocked them all out of the park and whatever. He's like, I got to tell you, I went to Kansas. I was there for a year. He's like, I don't know. Israel's my home. So what did this guy proceed to do? I proceed to start working with him in this little town that he lives in. I won't say where, next to Rishon LeZion. There's like a little town. Actually, the town is right next to Kfar Chabad.
Nest Siona?
No, it's not Nesion. Place called Bet Dagan.
Bet the gun, of course.
Yeah, yeah, right next to Karkhabat. So what did I start doing? This guy in the beginning, I was living in Tel Aviv. So what I would do was I would take a bus to Bet Dagan, which took me like to like a tzomit to intersection on the highway, and then I would walk about 10 or 15 minutes to his house, and we would start working. Let's say 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Israel time, which is 9:30 American time. We started trading American stocks. And then I would stay in his house. His mother-in-law would feed me. She would give me amazing food. I became part of the family. And then at like 10 o'clock, maybe earlier than that, because we would stop before the market closed. He would drive me, basically he would drive me home. Like a 10, 15 minute drive already at 10 o'clock from Bet Dagan to Tel Aviv, to northern, center of Tel Aviv. We did this for a few months, and then I moved to Jerusalem. I went to yeshiva. I moved to Jerusalem, and then after I left yeshiva, I had an apartment in Israel, in Jerusalem, and I would live in his house pretty much from like Sunday to Thursday because we were trading stocks. He's like, "Listen, Greg, what's the point of you going an hour and a half back and forth on bus, or sometimes 2 hours
Yeah.
from Bet Dagan to Jerusalem back and forth? Just stay here for like 3 days." I just like lived at his house. He doesn't know me from Adam. He just met me a year prior. And that's when I realized like Hashem has me. I don't know about anybody else. I can only speak for myself. Hashem has me. Some random Yemenite dude with an uncle in Kansas who gave us a lot of money to trade stocks, American stocks, which I've been doing for like the previous 8 years as a professional. And this guy himself was like a professional in some bunch of firms, and then now this firm in Herzliya. And I'm like, all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm like living in his house 4 days a week. And then when I'm not living in his house, I'm in yeshiva. I'm living in yeshiva and I'm going back to Jerusalem for Shabbat. So I kind of had like the best of both worlds. And I'm like, Hashem, I mean, like you got me, right? And then after that, I ended up working for like whatever, this organization, Russian speaking Jewish organization, like
Wait,
a
wait, wait.
journal.
Back up for a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
I feel like I missed the part where you explain why you stopped working for this guy.
Oh, why did I stop working? I'll tell you why. So basically
'Cause
we
that's what
had
everybody's listening
no
is
no
like,
no. So
what happened?
we had this whole elaborate plan to what we were gonna do. The plan was because at one point I went to yeshiva and I kept telling this guy, man, people are in my yeshiva and other yeshivas hear that I'm trading American stocks and they're asking me for a job. And the guy told me, Greg, do you know what this means? He goes to me, and here's where you're asking me about opportunities and all that stuff. He goes, this is like 13 years ago, 2012, 2013. He goes to me, Greg, how? And I told him all these guys they want to stay in Israel and they just need a job. He goes, how much do you think an American guy needs to make a month to stay in Israel? Even a married guy with a kid. I'm like, I don't know, 4,000 American, three, maybe even three, 10,000 shekels. He goes, Greg, do you think that a guy, an intelligent yeshiva guy with a Talmudic head, can make $200 a day in the stock market? This with 20 trading days a month. I'm like, yes. Do you think he goes, do you think you can make 150 a day? Yes. Even 100 a day? Yes. He's like, now imagine we take all these guys from Chappelle, from or Sameach, from Ish, from Machon this and Machon that, and Machon that. We open an office in Jerusalem. So what was the idea? Guys come in, 9 o'clock Israel time, which is 2 a.m. New York time. They daven Shachrit. They learn until like 12 or 1 in the afternoon, and then at 1 in the afternoon, which is 6 a.m. New York time, they start preparing to trade, preparing, researching, looking at news, stock, different things. They start doing research, and by the time the market opens in America, which is 4:30 in Israel, they're ready to trade. They're done by 7 p.m. at Israel time because that's basically when the market just slows down.
Okay, sounds great, Greg.
That was a business. Why did
So
we
what
not do it?
happened?
What? Okay. So what happened? Two things happened. I'll say two things.
Yeah.
I went to a lecture by our favorite rabbi, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, who was visiting Israel, and I
You don't have to
decided.
continue, Greg.
No, I continue. He goes, so I presented him. I asked him, like, what do you think of this idea? I sat with him in private in this yeshiva, and he said, "Can I ask you a question?" He goes, "What happened?" No, he's like, "Where's the money coming from?" I said, "Well, we have an investor, we have a person that gives us money or whatever." He goes, "What happens if the guys lose money?" I said, "Nothing." He's like, "Do they have to pay it back?" I'm like, "No, we have a maximum kind of what's called a max loss that they can lose, and then they stop trading. That's it." He's like, "Listen, you have to be very careful with something like this because it would if you these guys, a lot of guys in this thing lose a lot of money. It could be a massive Hillel Hashem all over town, and you could give a bad name to all these yeshivas." And he gave me this whole like scare thing. Right around the same time, I get approached by this guy, Russian-speaking guy who used to work, who's actually connected to a rabbi that you and I both know, who started the school that you went to, the high school that you went to in Brooklyn. And it's a guy that, whatever, was connected through that. He approached me. He used to work for BB, and he approached me and said, we want to start this organization to do like kind of outreach, but like more like social
Wait,
media. Yeah,
back up, back up.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was because of this conversation with Mizrahi
It wasn't because
that
of that. It was also because I was approached to work in a field and in a job that I always wanted to do, which was journalism.
so,
And I and
so
I
in
told
summary,
yeah,
there's a guy when he came to Israel. All of a sudden, you had this opportunity.
yeah,
You got close with him. It was working. You were even staying at his house. His mother-in-law was feeding you.
yeah.
He had an idea to do this thing, and
But he had a
you
full-time job.
what was it?
He had a full-time job. There was a lot of other things that happened that kind of derailed us from doing this. I'm not telling you the full kind of story, but
That's no. I mean, I'm saying if you're gonna tell a story and
we
you're gonna say
we
here's the
what
opportunity I
happened
had,
was we
you have to also
wanted
explain
we
what
wanted
happened.
to start, yeah, we wanted to start this firm. We wanted to hit the ground running. We wanted to start this firm with by hiring guys who are who were former Wall Street guys. And I didn't meet many guys in any yeshiva that were actually former Wall Street guys. I actually met one who was working for a serious place in America. We actually were going to start with him. He was going to be like the lead guy that we were going to start this whole thing with. We met with him. He agreed to it. And then he went back to his rabbi and his shiva. I'm not going to say which one. And his rabbi told him not to do it because it would impede on because he was a brilliant, whatever, Torah mind, and it would impede on his studies. So my partner actually told me that he also doesn't want to start something like this with just random guys and to take months and months to teach them literally how to trade. He wants to start this with already professional guys. He goes, "Greg, you've been doing this for 8 years. I consider you a professional at this, but we need more than just one professional guy. So we need to have professional guys." So I kind of weighed everything at the time, and I was getting this offer from this organization to work as in social media and media, what is it called, to be like a media manager for this organization. And I said, listen, I told actually this guy, my partner, I was like, listen, let me go do this, see how this is. And he told me, he's like, yeah, he's like, listen, go do it. And I started doing it. And then about a few months into me doing it, I met, see, this whole snowball of life, I met this lady who ended up being my ex-fiance, I moved back to America, and that was the end of that.
Okay, so why did I ask you for all these details?
Yeah.
Because stuff like this has happened to me a lot of times,
Yeah.
right? And instead of reading the basic signs that God gives us, right? We get
sidetracked. Yeah.
we get sidetracked, which also seems like it comes from him too, by the way.
Of course it came from him.
Right? Like you have to say, you have to ask yourself a couple of simple things. Like, okay, God sent me here, and I met this guy. All of a sudden, we hit it off, and as business partners, right?
Yeah.
We're becoming friends, and I'm making some money.
Yeah.
Maybe I should stay. Maybe I should stay. You know what I mean? Maybe I should figure out a way to hang out with him. Maybe God wants me to be friends with this guy. Maybe he wants, something to, to happen. And just like that. And then,
yeah,
I don't know, but then he sends all this other stuff to trip us up.
Yeah, of course. There was like and of course the Rambam says if you're allowed to leave Israel if you find yours, you're getting married and you find your zivug. So I felt that I found my zivug, so I left Israel, and then of course there's all these things that happen, and I got some wonderful advice and blah blah blah.
You didn't have
the
the
rest of it.
Meraglim and Israel during the Exodus didn't have to deal with none of this shit.
I
None of
know,
it. They
I
had a
know
clear
that.
thing.
I know.
You're going to Israel.
Yeah.
You're going to be working the land. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing that. Don't worry about the big scary giants. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Everything. All guaranteed.
And for me, it wasn't even giants. It was like people.
And if you have any specific questions, talk to my prophet or consult with the high priest and the Urim and the Tumim. There's many ways that you can get very clear, specific, straight answers from me. None of that exists. None of it. Okay, so
I got it into my at the time. Again, we spoke about this. I got it into my head that rabbis have advice to give out, and some rabbis have more, even more advice because they're Kabbalists. And it's funny. Like I hadn't. My intuition was telling me that what I'm doing is not right, or part of what I'm doing is not right. It was telling me that, and I literally went against it. And from that moment on, I learned not to go against my own very, very powerful intuition. And during COVID, I went with my intuition, and I did the right things. Baruch Hashem. But
folks, if you're gonna be, let's say, a convert, or let's say a Baal Teshuva, right? And you're going to start becoming Torah observant, I recommend the following attitude, okay? Don't do what I did. Don't do what Greg did for the most part. I don't know, maybe he was a little better, a little worse. I don't know. But basically, you have to understand that we don't have prophets, and we don't even have the great wise men of just the previous generation who passed away in the late 80s and the early 90s. They're all gone. Okay. We have a lot of people who are, we have a lot of people where you hear about them from the lady that you went to, you spent Shabbos by her house and she knows a big Mikubal. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Okay. So if God called you, and he taught you, he showed you the Torah is real, right? Like he showed me, and he's found a way to reach you, to reach your consciousness, your awareness, and you're responding by becoming more observant. You have to stay true to the specific thing that hooked you. The way, what did God do to,
in my case, it was Israel.
To tap you on the shoulder. In my case, it was like Torah codes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So So if God attracted you to him in a certain way, then that particular way is special. There's something about it, and you have to stick to it. If there's a particular Torah subject which captivated you, right, and got you into this, you have to kind of make that your main focus. Okay, like delve into it. I'm not saying ignore everything else, but that is your connection to God. That's how he got you, right? That's what attracted you. Okay? So so stick to that and don't let yourself get sidelined or or geared in some other direction that you don't feel a personal connection to, that you kind of, it feels like you kind of have to force yourself to get into, right? Stay connected to what you love. Okay. Obviously, you have to, there has to be some level of balance where you can't just learn that one thing that you like, but don't allow yourself to be pulled away from it, is what I'm saying. Learn everything, but always stay connected to that thing that pulled you in to being interested in Torah in the first place. And in fact, you can figure out a way to connect to everything else in Torah through that one thing, because everything in Torah is interconnected with everything else, right?
Yeah.
Like if you like the mitzvah of Sukkot, right, of building that booth, right, that mitzvah, if you like to learn about it, if you like to observe it, it's connected to everything else. That could become your focus, and that the more you learn about it, the more you learn about everything else it's connected to. So that's your gateway, and that's your home in a sense, your home base in Torah. Okay, if you like any mitzvah, could be that for you, whatever it is. Any Torah subject could be that for you, because it's not isolated, it's connected to everything else. Just remember what your natural inclinations are in Torah, right? What interested you, and stick to that. And and because we don't have any public prophets, like we have prophets, but they're in hiding and they're not interested in letting anybody know that they're prophets. Okay, and we don't have any actual big rabbis who are well established to have like a ruach hakodesh, right? Like the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Okay, so you have to kind of take responsibility for your own growth and relationship to God. You can't come to a rabbi because somebody said, "Oh, this is a rabbi. He's a great rabbi." It's always some lady. "Oh, he's such a great rabbi. He's such a great rabbi. Oh, he's the best rabbi. This and that." Okay, no, take a step back. He's just a human being.
Yeah.
Okay, he might be very knowledgeable. He could actually be helpful if you come there reinforced with the following. You can't be swayed so easily just because he's a rabbi. You have to know yourself. You have to know your kind of natural connection to God, right? The way that you connect to him. You got, every person has their own relationship to God. You don't need another person to be a go-between. Okay. So that's your relationship with God. That's your situation. You know what I mean? Like, you know how like people in relationships, right? Man and woman, right? They're like, don't tell people our business, right? Like it's not the rabbi's responsibility of what goes on between you and your husband, or you and your wife, or you and your friend. That's you and your friend. Same thing. That's you and God. You can't have a rabbi dictate everything. You got to know what's up with you and God. You got to know that you have your own personal situation with God. Okay. And then you are responsible for that. Once you have some familiarity with that idea, and you kind of see how that works in your own life, then, and you know that you're responsible for it, then you can go to a rabbi who knows, he knows a lot, and he can give you some advice perhaps. But if you treat it like prophecy and law, you're gonna get sent in. It's not gonna go well, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like rolling the dice.
And it did not. It did not. Listen, looking back, I mean, obviously Hashem always has more scenarios. Like even if you make, so to speak, the wrong choice. There's always more scenarios. You know, I never would have started my business with wine. I never went on this crazy, now like 10-year journey in this whole thing. Where I got connected to a lot of incredible people and stuff that I went to places that I never thought I would, got, you know, saw things that I never thought I would had. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten connected to them had I stayed in Israel, or maybe not. Maybe yes. I don't know. Who the hell knows? But um, a lot of amazing things happened. I also got to see, like, you know, I became Torah observant while living in Israel, man. You know, and I didn't really get to see. And some say, why the hell would you need to see it? But you know, the tapestry of the Orthodox world in America. I never lived in it. Uh, you know, I still don't fit into it. I know you also don't fit into it. Uh, we've spoken about this many times. But at the very least, if we are to be doing this, at least with
My
what I'm,
community, by the way, is very welcoming to me.
no,
And
I
even,
know,
even
I
with me
know,
not trying,
I know,
somehow,
I know. I'm just talking about the general, like,
yeah,
American
yeah,
frumkeit, what they call it, right?
yeah.
But even so, like, you know, even what I'm doing with like all my videos and also what you and I are doing, uh, you know, it allows me to see the total picture that I wouldn't have seen had I not come back to America. As much as it's been very painful for me to be here. Yeah, who the heck knows, man? I don't know. Hashem clearly wants what he wants out of me. He wants me to be at certain places at certain times. Obviously, you know, there's quote unquote free will involved, and I make the choice when I go there and when I go where I go. But sometimes I can't go because of family considerations also and financial, and it's really up to him. I leave it up to him. That's where I'm at at this point. I've worked on that relationship that I have with him, you know, where he's in control of that. And then when I feel when my intuition tells me, okay, like I can go live in Israel now, I can go visit Israel, you know, I pull the trigger. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's gonna be up to him. Like people are asking me, Tzvi, why are you not, you know, like people, I have people, friends that live in Israel, or even people here, like, Tzvi, what, you know, what's stopping you from going to Israel?
It's parents.
No, it's not just my parents. Listen, my father was all gung ho about me going to work. You know, I had this, there was an opportunity that came up for me to go work in a winery to be like the head of this visitor center over there. And whatever, it just didn't work out for different reasons, specifically financially. So it's not parents. There's just stuff to do, you know. There's stuff to do. There's stuff to take care of. There's stuff to figure out. You know, I'm at the point in my life where I'm trying to kind of do things the right way. I'm not a 30-year-old kid anymore. You know, granted, when I made Aliyah, I had a baby on the way, but still, you know, like after after that ended, basically. I think I mentioned before I lost the baby. After that whole thing ended, I was basically, you know, I was a 31, 32-year-old kid just living for himself, and like I didn't need much, right? Now I'm pushing, you know, a little bit older.
Okay, so you're 44-year-old kid. Still
Yeah,
the
I
same
get, yeah,
situation.
listen, you know, no,
Yeah.
listen, at the end of the day, you gotta, you know, listen, if I had to live in a box, I would, but you know, I want to build a family there. I want to be serious about building a family there.
Okay, so you
Yes.
got to go. You got to go there. If your parents are not, is not what's keeping you here, you got to
Yeah.
go.
There's also business considerations here that I still have to figure
I,
out what's
I
what.
would even be willing to give up the podcast just for you to go there and do
I
it.
don't, if anything, I think the podcast, dude, I was there. First of all, we started this when I was there.
I, I was
Yeah,
trying. I was doing a little bit of shtick,
I
dude.
know, I know. I'm just saying, if anything, like you know, you
I'm
saw
just
when
saying, even if,
yeah,
like, for whatever reason,
yeah, but
you going to Israel and getting all that stuff done meant we couldn't do the podcast.
Oh,
I would, you know what I mean?
but that job was like the way that the guy presented me that job, whoever was presenting, he was presenting it like here's all these hours, you won't be able to breathe, and you'll have the money that's not commensurate with these hours, and so that would have effectively killed what you and I are doing, at least for some time.
Yeah, but
But it wasn't the reason I didn't take it. It was just like it just was not a fit financially. It was just not.
yeah,
It was like it was something that like you could say, well, even if that's the case, you should still go because you want to be there. Like people were telling me that. I'm like, dude, yeah, but like I'm giving people the signal that I'm willing to basically be an indentured, in what we call in Torah, an Eved Kanani,
yeah.
to
I
other
hear you. I
people,
get that.
just because I want to be in Israel, like, no, an indentured servant,
Yeah.
whatever.
So listen, let's can we do our new tradition of playing a clip from Rabbi Weisberg?
We can, but how
Uh,
long is it?
his clips were short generally, right?
Let's see.
Like remember, we
Yeah.
started this new initiative,
So the older ones, right?
and unlike our previous initiatives, which
Oops.
we never kept to,
Yeah.
maybe we could try to keep to this
Yeah.
because
So here's one that's this is video number 3 because we watched the first 2 already.
we did watch the first 2, and then we watched the very last one.
Yeah,
Okay.
the most recent one. Yeah.
Okay, so let's watch the third.
So the third
video.
one it's called Finally After 4,000 Years, Jews and Arabs Embrace.
Okay, so this is going back again, folks, to 2020.
Yeah, the Abraham Accords, I guess.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
probably talking about the Abraham
Yeah.
Accords. Okay.
Yeah.
So the theme of these lectures from Rabbi Weisberg, if you're tuning in for the first time, is that he talks about he feels that he calculated the date for the coming of the Mashiach, which is focused around the year 2027 and before. He's not giving like exact moments, precise hours, but he's talking about, a very small period of time, relatively speaking, to all of history, which is like somewhere within a year and a half, okay, around 2027 and before. Okay, so and it's based on verses in the book of Daniel and many other Torah sources. So please continue.
This is Rabbi Weisberg talking about, I guess, the Abraham Accords. Like a 12-minute video, then we'll wrap up.
Part 3. Who is Donald Trump and what is his mission? I'm not referring to the mortal man and his domestic and foreign policies. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the metaphysical man and his cosmic role. When, in the future, the history of mankind is recorded by men of great divine insight, similar to the prophets of old who recorded the history of the Jewish people in the books of the prophets, at that point in the future, how will the presidency of Donald J. Trump be recorded for all eternity? 1,000 years from now, nobody will care about his tweets or his personal life. Nobody will even know what Twitter is. We are not familiar with all the gadgets they used 1,000 years ago, and neither will they. The single question will be, was Donald Trump a good leader who stood up for God and the Jewish people and played an important role in furthering God's plan for Tikkun Olam? Cyrus the Great was king of the Persian Empire 2,391 years ago. He is recorded in the Bible as a righteous, God-fearing king who was chosen by God to free the Jewish people from the Babylonian exile. The book of Ezra describes in detail how he encouraged the Jews to go back to the land of Israel and rebuild Jerusalem and the Holy Temple, and how he assisted them in many ways in this endeavor. In fact, the Bible gives him the name Koresh because of its similarity to the word kosher, meaning he was a good king. There may very well have been things in his personal life or aspects of his domestic and foreign policies that may not have been 100% kosher, but that is of no concern to us. Moreover, Cyrus actually went back on his word and subsequently halted the construction of the Beit HaMikdash. This was obviously not so kosher. But the Bible attributes this to the vicious slander brought before him by enemies of the Jews, and does not seem to fault Cyrus. In the grand scheme of things, he is placed on the right side of history, regardless of his personal faults and mistakes. Our focus in this and the next segments will be only on how Trump fits into the grand scheme of things. In this incredibly divisive and hostile election, how will the prophets of old, who understood the inner workings of God's plan, vote? In my opinion, they have already voted. It seems clear to me from the books of the prophets that Donald Trump is in the midst of fulfilling a series of divine missions which have not yet been completed. And it is therefore with certainty that he will be given more time to complete his positive role in the cosmic history of the Jewish people and of all mankind. That is why the numeric value of his name, Donald Trump, is identical to that of Mashiach ben David, Messiah the son of David, 424. No, he is not the Messiah, but he is on Messiah's team. He is working for God and preparing the world for the redemption, as I will shortly explain. To ensure proper perspective, we need to go back a long time, 4,124 years ago. That is when Noah emerged from the ark after the great flood. In the book of Genesis chapter 9, the Bible records an episode which revealed to Noah the true nature of his three children and their destinies. Shem and Yefet displayed goodness and sensitivity. Chum displayed the worst of human nature. After becoming aware of the role of his three children played in that episode, Noah declared, "Blessed be God, the Lord of Shem," meaning that it will be the descendants of Shem who will be entrusted with bringing the word of God to mankind. He went on to declare that the descendants of Yefet will be very populous and would have extensive lands. He also blessed Yefet that he will dwell in the tent of Shem. This means that Yefet's descendants will be inspired to join with the descendants of Shem to promote goodness, righteousness, and godliness. His third son Chum had 4 children. Noah said nothing about 3 of them, but he singled out one of them, Canaan, as being the one who possessed the primary negative spiritual genes of his father. We will get to him later. Eventually, after 10 generations, Abraham was chosen to father a nation who will fulfill the destiny Noah prophetically saw emerging from the progeny of Shem. After a life of incredible devotion and self-sacrifice to spread the word of God and influencing tens of thousands to abandon the immoral practices of paganism and embrace the moral code of the true compassionate and loving God of the universe, God was ready to seal the deal with Abraham. The covenant is recorded in the book of Genesis chapter 15. It is called the Pact of the Halves. In a vision, Abraham was instructed to take 3 animals, a cow, a goat, and a ram, and cut them in half, separate them, and create a path in between them. He was also instructed to take 2 birds, doves, and put them on both sides of the path. In his vision, he then beheld a fiery torch, representing the presence of God, passing through the path. This symbolized that just as 2 halves of the animal are really one, the 2 parties making the pact, God and Abraham, are committing themselves to each other and uniting as one. That's the way they made covenants in those days. In this vision, Abraham was informed that being chosen to carry God's word to the world comes with a heavy price tag. Abraham was told that his descendants will encounter massive and practically universal opposition and experience enormous suffering from the hands of those who are not excited about hearing God's message. He was told about the suffering his children will endure in Egypt. He was also shown that after his children will finally arrive in the promised land and establish a homeland for themselves, their independence and freedom will not last. The land of Israel and the Jewish people will be dominated by 4 mighty empires. These are represented by the 3 animals and the birds. The three animals represent the Babylonian, Persian, and Greek empires. The birds represent the mighty Roman Empire, which evolved into the Christian world and Western society, under whose dominion we remain until the coming of Mashiach. In a future segment, I will discuss the odd choice of tame little birds to represent the mighty Roman Empire, and why there were two of them, and why they were left alive. At that time, God also made a commitment to Abraham that his descendants will be given the land of Israel from river to river. This promise is repeated dozens of times throughout the Bible, and from here on in, the Jewish connection to the land of Israel is a central theme that runs through every book of the Bible. The problem was that Abraham was already 86, and his wife was 10 years younger, but way beyond the age in which she could naturally have her own children. In those days, if a woman owned a female servant and wanted more children, it was considered acceptable to have her husband father children through her servant. The children would be considered as those of the mistress. Hagar was the daughter of the Egyptian Pharaoh. After witnessing firsthand the miracles God performed for Sarah when she was taken to her father's palace, as recorded in Genesis chapter 12, she was deeply inspired and offered herself as an indentured servant to Sarah so she can be part of her household. Sarah reasoned that the promise God gave to Abraham regarding his descendants would not come through a child of her own womb, so she asked Abraham to father a child for her through Hagar. Against his better judgment, Abraham conceded, and Yishmael was born. As recorded in Genesis chapter 17, when Abraham was 99, God further cemented his covenant with Abraham through the commandment of circumcision, which would henceforth be the hallmark of Jewish identity. God also informed Abraham at that point that he will have another son through his wife Sarah. And it will be through him, and not Yishmael, that the covenant will continue. Abraham loved his son Yishmael. He did not consider himself worthy of fathering a miraculously born son at the age of 100 with a wife who was 90 years old. He therefore proposed to God an alternative plan. God should do his thing and pull some strings to ensure that Yishmael will grow up to be a righteous young man, and thus be worthy that the covenant can continue through him. Out of his immense love to Abraham, God agreed to meet him halfway. The covenant would indeed be passed on to Isaac. That part of the plan was immutable. However, Yishmael too will be blessed with a huge number of descendants and with many nations emerging from him. It is obvious that worldly greatness and material abundance meant nothing to Abraham. He was devoted to God with every fiber of his being, and life without a connection to God was meaningless to him. He prayed that Yishmael should live with God and not that he should be rich and powerful. Thus, when God says in verse 20 that he has accepted Abraham's prayer regarding Yishmael, he must have meant that Yishmael too will eventually come around. Yishmael was not only excluded from the covenant, but also booted out of Abraham's home at the age of 27 by Sarah. She did this because he was into the wrong things, and she feared he would influence her son Isaac in the wrong direction. Yishmael obviously harbored a lot of jealousy and hatred towards Isaac, who had replaced him, especially in those days when the firstborn was given special prominence. Abraham's prayer on behalf of his elder son was somewhat fulfilled even in his lifetime. Abraham died at the age of 175. Before he died, he merited to see how his son Yishmael had come to terms with his fate and admitted that Isaac was more worthy than he. The great Jewish mystics revealed that the history of Yishmael's progeny will parallel that of his own. Just like his mother rejected the paganism of her Egyptian upbringing and embraced the truth of God by joining the family of Abraham, so too the Arabs will give up paganism and embrace monotheism. And just like Yishmael hated Isaac for most of his life and felt cheated out of his birthright and his inheritance of the land of Israel, so too the Arabs will be antagonistic toward the Jews for most of their history, and they will reject the right of the Jews to the land of Israel. And just as Yishmael repented towards the end of Abraham's life, so too will his progeny eventually come around to accept the Jewish claim to the land of Israel. My dear friends, we have been privileged to witness the fulfillment of this vision before our very eyes. As one Arab nation after another has taken a very bold and courageous stand and ignored the massive opposition from their fellow Arabs and Muslims to acknowledge the rights of the Jewish people to the land of Israel and to normalize relations with them. But more on this on the next video.
Fascinating. You know, a lot of people doubt. You're muted, Frank. A lot of people doubt the genuineness of these Arab nations, coming to make peace with Israel. A lot of people say, "Oh, Kushner gave them money. So what? Abraham gave Ishmael and his mom stuff too."
Nobody's saying that the Abraham Accords are a fulfillment, a full fulfillment, but there seems to be a beginning stage
Correct.
in that direction. Okay. I think that not interfering with Israel in bombing and finishing up whatever they were planning to do in Iran could have gone a long way towards doing that, probably accelerating that process, especially with Israelis being seen as liberators of Iranians and having the opportunity to return the favor of Cyrus, right? That really could have been something special, something symbolic. And it's heartbreaking that was not allowed to happen.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult, it's very difficult to restart a momentum once you stop a powerful momentum. That's what Trump did. He stopped a powerful, positive momentum. This is Trump's F up, in my view. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. How many times in a row did I say that? I'll say it 3 more times. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. Okay. Because ultimately we want Mashiach to come and in full revelation. So
yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
Amen. Hashem. All right, folks.
When some Israeli out there start this adopt a Jew.
Yeah, somebody did it for me, sort
campaign. Yeah, do you want us? Here's a maybe you could make a clip out of this. To our Israeli brothers and sisters out there, do you want us? Do you want us to come and be with you in the land of Israel? Are you missing us? Does it feel like we're missing from your lives?
I think I've met a lot of them who do. And then I met a lot of them, not that they don't, but they wonder why we would.
Yeah. So if you truly wanted us in your lives, let us know. That's it.
Yeah. All right, sir. Talk to you very soon.
Peace.
And may folks, it's Dr. Zelenko's Yortzeit in a few hours, and may his neshama have an aliyah. Zev Belville Wolf.
I want his neshama back.
Correct. Because neshama is not. There's nothing.
Shouldn't go too far. It shouldn't go too far away. But,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Amen. All right, folks. Talk soon.